Welcome to Geeks and Grounds, a monthly game club and bi-weekly podcast where we play games and brew thoughtful conversation together. I am your host, Jenny, she, her, and back with us in the cafe we have the brand new wielder,
Josh, he, him.
In case you're new or you need a refresher, we focus on one game a month, really percolate over it, if you will, so we can deep dive into its themes, its mechanics, and make those connections between what we're playing and our own lives. And this month, we have been playing Chicory, A Colorful Tale, which is a top-down adventure in a colorful, a coloring book world that you fill with color, full of vibrant characters and some really emotional themes. So if you haven't gotten started yet, it's not too late. The end of the month is still not here. As always, you can pick up the game, play as you kind of need to at your leisure, and there is the thread that you can participate in. And at the very end of the month, which I should have gotten the date ahead of time, on the 25th of April 2026, if you're listening to this as this launches, we're having the hangout to discuss the game in person in Discord. You can find out all the information at geeksandgrounds.com. But first, before we hop into today's discussion, we're going to make a pit stop at a pastry case. This is our grab bag of topics, sometimes industry news, sometimes just what we've been into. And I just wanted to see what you've been excited about and into for the last, I guess, since 2 weeks ago, since we last recorded, Josh.
Oh, gracious. Let's see. So I think the excitement. That's a good thing to find. Titanium Court. I can't talk about it yet, but because it's still a little bit under embargo. But I think by the time folks are getting to this, it'll be around. It's a really cool roguelike that has some it's just so hard to describe. If you check out the demo, it feels like such an interesting way to approach, like, it's not, the graphics aren't super wild. It's a roguelike, it's a match 3, but it's got such interesting style and storytelling to it. Exploring it is it's just a joy. It feels very unique in the game space, and that's been really cool to see.
Yeah, I loved the demo. I have been playing it as well, and I am just delighted. AP, who also worked on Consume Me, which was one of my favorite titles from last year, has absolutely just kind of done it again with this game. And the Shakespearean twist was something that I was not expecting. So it's like on top of what you already described, where it's like a little bit hard to describe because it feels like you are just putting a word salad of genres together. At the same time, it is the only way to describe it unless you just get your hands on and play. And Shakespearean is like the other word I would sprinkle on top of
I think that is a quality word to add to the salad. Definitely a top tier dressing.
Yeah, I am so excited for more people to play it, because I think this is one also that they've done the strategy that I think a few other titles have in recent years. Blueprints comes to mind, where I think they've really seeded it quite heavily among people in the industry to get that like grassroots buzz going. And then I think, like, the idea being this organic buzz is going to be what's pushing it, to more general populations and people who may not have picked it up on their own.
Right.
So I'm very interested to see from like the marketing perspective how that works, because it worked really well for Blueprints, I feel like.
Yeah.
And this is a really good game too, and I hope it gets as much hype as Blueprints did.
Yeah, it definitely, I think it's interesting the way that discovering what is happening in the world feels a little different than Blueprints, right? Like, it doesn't have, but it still has there's just so much that's interesting to discover in it. And I think that the gameplay feels a little less brain breaking than Blueprints. Like, you definitely want to be like carrying a notebook and catching every little puzzle and whatnot in Blueprints, and Titanium Court gives you a little bit more space to just kind of like come along for the ride. So it'll be interesting to see how folks get into it.
Yeah. And to be clear, for folks listening, it does not play like Blueprints. Like,
Yeah,
I guess they
very
wrote
different
like,
game.
it's
Yes.
not at all like Blueprints. I was more talking about to like the marketing strategy. But I guess the closest they come is technically they're both roguelites. So if that entices you, if that's enough of an enticement, that's a good one. But yeah, anything else you've been like really enjoying in terms of media or even outside of media this like
Yeah.
past 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think the past 2 weeks have been honestly pretty hectic. I've been doing a lot of like personal work and a lot of work on the dev team for Lancer Tactics. So have been having, trying to find a lot of like good reading and having
Mm.
tough conversations and that kind of thing. So I think in terms of yeah, in terms of where I've been able to spend time with good media, it's been Titanium Court and Slay the Spire, but well, and obviously, Chicory.
Yeah. Have you been playing Slay the Spire 2 or have you been sticking with the OG for now?
I'm on both.
Oh, dang.
If yeah, so Slay the Spire on mobile is the one that takes the most of my time because my phone is always with me. If I am, if I have my Steam Deck handy, then I'll pop into some Slay the Spire 2. Yesterday, I was streaming Final Fantasy X and still stuck on Sin, and so I would load up Slay the Spire and like play a stage in Slay the Spire while I was waiting for the last cutscene to go through because you can't skip
Oh,
cutscenes.
yeah. That's smart.
So, I mean, what would have been smarter would be, going back and grinding for a little bit to make the fight more accessible. But
Potato, potato,
so
right?
that's something like that. So, uh, but yeah, I mean, they're both good games and they both feel, I think there is a sort of like pureness to some of the difficulty in the original Slay the Spire. There's a lot of new mechanics and stuff in the second one that make
Mm.
runs, at least to me right now, feel like there's more space for things to sort of feel like that they'll change and get variable, which is a lot of excitement,
Mm.
but there is still a sort of like core experience in the base game that's fun to play too.
Yeah, I will. Seeing all the hype for, both the second game as well as the first one kind of coming back into the zeitgeist, I still am like, maybe it's been a few years since I last tried it. Maybe this like stage of my life could be a Slay the Spire stage, but there's just too many other things I'm hoping to engage with, so
Yeah,
the
that
time is not now, I guess.
there are so many games out there that, the idea of trying to pick up on every, part of the zeitgeist is just yeah, there's no time.
Impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, anything else or
I think
mostly it?
that pretty well takes care of me. What have
Mm.
you been up to?
Um, not a lot of games. This week, shout out to Tegan. Tegan's been
Yeah.
hanging out here and instead of playing really Chicory is the only game I have been focused on playing. Titanium Court I've been getting a little time in as well, but it's been really cool because this past week I've just been like thinking about Portland through the eyes of someone who's never been here before and thinking like what are the places that I just generally go to that I love that are just going to be fun to take Tegan and be like, this is where I go co-work every day,
Yeah,
and like go do
absolutely.
coffee. As well as doing some things like we went to the Tulip Festival, which actually I have never been to.
What was it?
At least it was really good. Like this is one of those things where I'm like, it sounds not that exciting because it's literally you go to a farm and it's a giant field full of variety of tulips and it's like tulips as far as the eye can see, which isn't technically exciting, but it just is. I don't know. I mean, we're playing Chicory too. It's like this idea of just appreciating beautiful things,
Yeah.
and appreciating like the fact also that this is nature that just like somehow in the universe everything collided to make tulips, and they're colorful and beautiful, and it was just so cool to see a ton of people just there to appreciate flowers. I don't know, it was just like a really charming, wholesome kind of moment where I'm like, man, we're all here just happy to look at tulips. So that's like one of the highlights among a few things that we've done. We've done like the Multnomah Falls hike where you go up to the waterfall, and that's just
Hmm.
cool because it's like, this is just a really big waterfall and we're very tiny. And it's like, yeah, just being able to appreciate the familiar with fresh eyes has been very fun this
Yeah.
past week, and have an excuse to just eat a lot of really good food. I've eaten so much sugar this week because we're like, oh, we should go to this place because it has really good pastries. Um,
What are some of
so
the
yeah.
highlights?
Um, Honestly, I mean, you came with us and we went and
Sure.
got Ponto, which
Hmm.
is Korean salt bread.
Delicious.
I fear they're going to put my face up and be like, do not serve this person because she's been here 3 times in the last 3 weeks.
No,
Um,
they'll just give you the membership card. Just, you
which
get
I would take because they're
multiple
not the
punches.
cheapest pastries to
They're
get, but
really
they're
not.
so delicious.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm like, you know what? This is a local, like, woman-owned business. I will spend that money because I want them to stick around. But yeah, so like getting things like salt bread. I feel like just copious amounts of coffee,
Yeah.
which for me is like great. I we went to there's a place called Kikipa, which is, I think it's maybe like Peruvian or I forget. It's not Mexican food, but it's like somewhere in the region. And it's just like it's just really, really good. And so, yeah, we've just had very good food, honestly, all week.
That's
Gone to food
wonderful.
carts, uh, and yeah, just had a good time. So that's been great. Um, I have bought far too many books from all the bookshops that we've been visiting. And I've been getting into Furin, re-getting into it because I watched like part of season one,
Okay.
loved it, did not finish it for whatever reason. So we're finishing season one, moving into season two, and I started picking up the manga. So that's what I'm like really excited to read currently, as well as this mycological body horror book called Wife Shaped Bodies.
Whoa.
It's very like dystopic, but fantasy where women have to control, like they all have like mushrooms growing out of their body and they have to constantly control them as they're, especially once they get married. And so it's about body control, isolation, just being a woman
Hmm.
within this lens of, again, body horror and fungus. So I'm excited so far. It's been good. I'm just like 3 chapters in, so very
Wow.
early on.
No, that sounds, yeah, that sounds like a hell of an experience to try and have to deal with.
Yeah, the first and I picked it up honestly because the cover was just really beautiful, and I was like,
Okay.
this is kind of freaky and cool. I will judge a book by its cover. I'm just gonna get it. And then I was sold because also the bookshop owner said that the author was going to be visiting in a few months. So I
Oh
was like, you
wow.
know what? That's kind of cool. I might as well just pick it up, see if it's any good, and if it is, I'll get to see the author in a few months.
Oh great.
Um, so yeah, it's just if anyone's into body horror, again, I'm not done with it, so I don't know how it continues, but the first couple of chapters have been very, very good and very strong, and it's called Wife Shaped Bodies.
Dang.
Yeah,
Okay.
into horror, my horror reading era
I was
is
gonna say,
here.
my sister is big into reading horror books, and it
Ooh.
just doesn't hit for me the same way. I'm not quite sure. It feels a little bit like, um, like true crime. Like there's like
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
a sort of vibe that I feel like many of my like femme friends are like in there's a cultural space for it, and it's
Yeah,
like, let me have a digest of horrible experiences, and death and decay and this,
yeah.
and I respect it. I
Mm-hmm.
just, yeah, I just can't spend. I haven't been able to feel compelled to spend the time there.
Yeah.
Perhaps when I find the right uh, horrific portrayal of, yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
No, that is honestly fair. I think for me, I have found that like right balance of what I enjoy and find interesting in horror versus the things that I find more just like, ooh, this feels just too either grotesque or extreme for me.
Okay.
And which is interesting considering I do enjoy body horror, um, which for whatever reason in my brain I feel like that makes sense to me in terms of like
Hmm.
a lot of the metaphor that body horror ends up being. And I'm like, this makes this just, I get it. I get it. I feel like it connects with to what I want out of horror more so than like, I don't know. I have never read a book that really jump scares me, but you know, like the
Hmm.
equivalent in games would be like the jump scares, the more serial killer kind of like, I feel like that's
Yeah.
not it for me.
True, but something about
Yeah.
the sort of like the long running tension and like sort of a slow manifestation perhaps, or a
Hmm.
more visceral personal experience.
Yeah, I think yeah, that and like haunted houses. I think something about haunted houses are really intriguing to me.
Okay. There's
Yeah.
I wish I could remember. My sister would have a whole list of
Yeah. Oh my
books relating to haunted houses. I'll have to track her down and ask for some info.
God. Yes, that would be amazing. Um, so I think that is it for the pastry case. Again, we usually keep this short because the bulk of this episode is going to be diving into Chicory. If you would like to check out any of the links of things that we've mentioned, I will have it in the newsletter that'll be out tomorrow. If you're listening to this as it's released, it'll be out a little bit later, mostly because I've been busy out and about, not drafting the newsletter this week. But you can also look at the website, geeksandgrounds.com. It should, all the links and the newsletter copy should also be shortly up within a day of this episode dropping, I imagine.
Pretty
So,
incredible turnaround.
I mean, you keep it easy for me by help, like having everything ready. I feel like I've been listing, what is it, sticky noting everything. So it's like you keep it easy for me, which is great.
No,
Um,
you just got a good process. It moves like clockwork.
um, so I think we are ready to dive into Chicory, which I will admit, I I look at how long to beat for all of the games that I haven't finished, and I'm like, okay, how long to beat said like 13 hours.
Nah,
No, I
no, not
will.
for this one.
I apologize in advance to everyone who was like, "What? This game?" I feel you technically could beat it
Oh yeah.
in that 13 hours. You could beat it probably in 10 hours. This is a game where I am just like, I think it's one of the few games I have finished technically like the story, but I'm gonna go back actually and try and 100% this game
Hmm.
because it is that worth spending this time on.
Absolutely.
Um, ugh. So kudos, like you told me, and I should have taken it more seriously. Where you're like, this is a really good one. Like you're really gonna want to spend time with it. You warned everyone 2 weeks ago in the episode.
That's true.
Yeah, you were absolutely right. And everyone should take that seriously.
It's hard to I even found that like doing second playthrough and
Hmm.
um so I found that doing second playthrough it hurt a little bit because there were places where I was like, okay, I'm like playing for time, I'm trying to make sure I'm ready for the podcast, and
Hmm.
like I I wish I had given myself more space to take my own advice. Um, it is like its mechanics and gameplay feel so different from what the takeaway of the game's experience ends up being, right? Like
Hmm.
um it's cool to go through and like do the coloring book thing and do all the painting and the but it's the little one-off conversations that you never expect. It's the
Yeah.
characters that you come back to and you talk to four, five, six different times and you watch their growth arc. It's like
Hmm.
there's a whole experience of like the game is a the I'm trying not to do the monologue thing. The game is so much about like the creative practice and the creative experience and the ways that we relate to creativity and opportunity and so many things. And it's also about the life that happens along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And to have the time and the space to really process that, it just yeah, it feels like it takes more. If you played the game and finished it in 13 hours, I feel like there are. It feels like if I played it and finished it in 13 hours, I would be leaving a bunch on the table that I think is part of what makes the game so special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was interesting. I when I finished the game, I was super satisfied. I felt like I got so much through my playthrough,
Yeah,
and I immediately felt like, oh, I I want to take more time with this, and I especially the last like maybe I would say the last quarter of the game.
sure.
I kind of want to go and like really take more time through that last bit because that's the part that I personally felt a little bit rushed on because I was
Hmm.
trying to, I realized the time was a ticking and I
Yeah,
had to finish. And so I was like, by that point, I did rush it a little bit and I wish I could have like slowed it down just a hair. So yeah, that was like I really wanted to highlight how good of advice that was leading into the game, and how I hope if people are listening to this and they still haven't finished, I would say my biggest request would be don't rush yourself. Like honestly, if you wanted to pause this and come back to it later and just like come back to the discussion later, that is worth it to preserve like the experience in my for my personal opinion. But
I'd
yeah.
agree. Hmm.
So before we get into full spoilers and like really the meat of the discussion, let's like go over some of those like higher umbrella sort of categories that you often see in like reviews or things like that, just to kind of share initial thoughts, gut reactions, and then we'll get into like the actual story and themes and everything. I wanted to highlight mechanics because I think there is a tension, and we talked about this a little bit last time, the
Hmm.
tension between the mechanics of you have the Zelda-esque adventure game where you are exploring screen by screen, discovering items. I don't know. There's quote boss battles that don't
Hmm.
technically have combat, but you're dodging things and sort of coloring things, and
Right.
that's takes the place of combat, which I think in their Kickstarter they should have been a bit more clear on because they definitely said absolutely none, which is what I was assuming as we moved in. So you have this sort of Zelda, you power up, you gain new abilities, again, very Zelda inspired. They mention it. And then you have the coloring, which I felt like, and it wasn't an unhappy tension, but there is a tension between like the moments where you feel the narrative pulling you forward and the
Mhm.
moments where you want to stop and color. And I'm curious, sort of your feelings, your sort of initial feelings on those mechanics.
Yeah, I think there is a it's interesting actually going back and reading. I think oh, gracious, I'm sorry, editing this is going to be fun. I think it is it is really evident to me how it is borrowing from Zelda's mechanics, but
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting how little I felt like, oh yeah, this is like a Zelda like going back and
Mm-hmm.
reading a lot of the reviews from around when it released, in what was it, 21?
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of folks were talking about how Zelda adjacent it was, and I think it's because there is not a very strong frame, especially at that time, for like a game that you would really take your time with, right? That like moving through and doing the action of the game feels in such strong contrast. I don't know. I tended to find that like, and I'm thinking about my first time playing through it too, playing through it on stream, that I would feel this pressure to move forward because I was like, well, I know there are people who are watching who probably don't want to just watch me sit and color these individual things, right? But playing it offline, I feel like I had this space of just being like, nah, the coloring book's here. I'm just gonna color in the coloring book. And
Mm-hmm.
I think there is I feel like you almost have to give yourself permission, which is a
Right.
lot of the tension that makes sense in, I mean, I'm sure that you feel that in a lot of your creative work. I mean, so much of what you do, I think last time we talked, you were talking about, having dance as this space that is a little bit more offline, a little bit less
Mm-hmm.
like algorithmically curated, right? But a lot of the work that you do that is your like creative heart is a lot of things that are like putting them together on a certain timeline, making content with a certain amount of like repetition.
Mm.
Where do you feel like how do you feel like you balance that kind of struggle? Maybe it's not fair to ask an outside of
No,
the
no.
group question.
I think no, well, and it's funny because I thought about that tension outside of the game a lot as I was grappling with it like in the game, where it's like, okay, especially because we're playing this on a timeline, because I do want to finish it in time to record, this episode. I felt there was this like push and pull of, okay, I am wanting to make sure I take my time coloring. And especially the first like maybe 4 chapters, I went, honestly, I was like, it was glorious. I went so slowly because every screen I was like, I am going to color and make it like I did not leave a screen
Yeah.
without it being fully colored. And it was interesting to see how the tension rose as that pressure to like make sure I get this done on time
Hmm.
got closer, where I still would color in the screens completely, but instead of because the coloring is really interesting because you have some objects on the screen that you can kind of click and they autofill really easily, and then
Right.
you can sort of hold the brush down to sort of like essentially sort of gradually
Film. Yeah.
fill, yeah, like wider elements of the screen, especially if it's something like the sky or the ground. And I increasingly used that like autofill as we got closer to the end because that was just a little bit faster
Right.
versus individually coloring. Like I would go into the cobblestones and the leaves and make sure like, okay, are we balancing like all of the colors on every screen?
Right.
And by the end, it was like, all right, let me use like 3 base colors and kind of just like fill it, but it's going to be filled just because. So it's interesting because it was this sort of dichotomy of it was a self-imposed sort of tension that I created
Hmm.
that I felt more at the end more than the beginning. And yeah, it's interesting because that's the same way with like, for example, my content or the things that I create specifically in the game space. A lot of it is just the self-imposed timelines. Well, no, that's a lie. Partially self imposed,
Hmm.
but partially imposed through the movement of the attention of the industry and the algorithms. So it's
Yeah.
like I try to balance a little bit of both. But yeah, I don't know. I was pleasantly surprised by the end. Like, even though I did feel a little bit of that pressure, how I really did feel able to just enjoy myself and how I was able to readily, for the most part, give myself permission to like take the time I needed to enjoy the game.
Hmm.
So, yeah. I think honestly, knowing your feelings on the game helped me feel like, okay, no, but it's okay to take that time because this
Yeah.
is going to be special. So I think that honestly, your review and sort of how I know you felt about it primed me to be able to be like, I can do this, and I'm not gonna ruin this by trying to make sure it 100% gets done.
Yeah. It's it was interesting. I took a whole, and we'll talk about some of this later, but
Mm-hmm.
I took like over 300 screenshots when I played on Steam the first time around.
Mm-hmm.
And I went through and like reviewed some of my screens from when I played the first time. And the coloring system, because it's so actually the art book, the Chicory art, it's like almost 200 pages, and they go
Mm-hmm.
into a lot of detail about how they put together like the coloring system. And I think that having that four color, wherever you are, you've got four colors to choose from. And it feels so, it's interesting that it still feels so unique and that there's still an attachment that I have to each of those screens, or the color scheme that I put together for a particular character, even working inside of that limited color palette. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, being able to have, I think it is maybe one of the few games that has given me the most tangible feeling of sort of like, this is the emotional attachment that you get to investing time in a game. Like, I keep thinking about how um, playing Final Fantasy X, a bunch of people in chat are talking about the hundreds of hours they dumped into maxing out the sphere grid and like all of these
Mm-hmm.
different things, right? Ways that we used to play games when we were kids and had fewer games to play and more time to play them.
Mm-hmm.
And now it feels like, oh, well, gotta hop to the next one, gotta finish this so that I can play this thing so that I can,
Yep.
clear the backlog. But it really does, I don't know, it means something. It creates a tangible connection to invest that time. And
Mm-hmm.
to get to have that unique way of like, oh, and I painted this scene this way. It's not just, oh, this was how my
Yeah.
character build ended up or whatever, but I can see just at a screenshot, oh, and I made a decision about this particular tree, or oh,
Mm-hmm.
here's this one thing that sticks out. Um, yeah, it's just really special. Did you play
Yeah. Well,
on did you play on PC?
I played on Steam Deck,
Oh, okay.
which honestly, even though the controlling and drawing on Steam Deck is not as precise as
Not as
mouse,
ideal. Hmm.
I will say the added challenge and sort of the happy mistakes and messiness of Steam Deck in a way kind of opened me up to just like a go with the flow
Hmm.
sort of creativity mindset that I really appreciated, because I was like, because I didn't have the precision of the mouse, I could just kind of say, you know what, it's not it's not a perfect
Yeah.
creation, but I really love it and I took time with it and I still am, the wonkiness is now part of this character.
Yeah,
you
that's
know
really cool.
um yeah, and to your point about the investment, I think it was incredible how, like, even I think the first time that I really felt that outside of the paintings, because I think the paintings are something that
Yeah.
feel more, quote, obviously, you've spent the time to like create an original work of art that's getting displayed, and that's really cool. I think one of the first times I had called, because I got in the habit, you have a helpline that you can call
Yeah.
with your mom and dad, and it's very charming. And sometimes I would just call because it was just so cute, and sometimes you get little additional conversation bits. I think the first time you call them after you meet them in Potluck, I
Yeah.
believe is where they live, I had colored in the mom, and the first time you see her in the phone and she's colored in how you colored her in, I was like, that's my mom.
Hmm.
It was like strangely emotional. And so I was like, okay, this game, again, that kind of detail where if you color in a character, they keep the color that you've given them no matter where you see them in the world. They don't change like the shade to fit the palette.
Hmm.
That felt so incredibly special. And that was one of those little details where I was like, okay, this game is going to wreck me by the end. And it did. It did wreck me. But um, yeah, I absolutely love that. So yeah, shout out to the sort of investment element that you were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm. Um, did you, I guess, audio, especially, with the caliber of folks working on this game, the audio is, I wish I had better words to describe like music and sort of the choices being made, because I used to play, but I'm like, I don't have that vocabulary anymore, other than like, I felt like the music was so well done. How instruments were either brought in or pulled out of
Hmm.
situations to just pull, um, like, focus and pull attention to sort of the emotion and the tenor of what was happening. Just incredibly done. I want to shout out that in the newsletter, I'm going to link an article. Is it Lena Rain or
Yeah, I believe so.
Lena? Okay.
Yeah.
Lena wrote on Medium about composing the motifs for Chicory, and I found it incredibly fascinating to read. So I'll link that as well, but you can search it up if you just look up, I think, composing for Chicory.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm curious if you had any specific thoughts on the soundtrack.
Yeah, I think we talked a little bit about it on the first show where I am
Hmm.
exceptionally susceptible to soundtrack in games.
Hmm.
I think it's so much of creating the energy that is cultivated in gameplay. Um, and as you know, as somebody who is not just able to hear but also connects really well to music,
Yeah.
it ends up being a really vibrant part for me. I think especially for a game where our interactions are so simple, to have
Mm.
audio that is by comparison, like to have all of the other pieces by comparison be so robust, it's part of what makes it feel really powerful. Like when you're playing a, or I should say, I feel like when I am playing a game that is a 3D, super high production value, you know, a Ghost of Yote,
Hmm.
you know, something like that, right? Those compositions can still be really gorgeous and are still part of setting so much of the tone. But when you're playing something that's relatively simple and it kind of sets this expectation of oh well, and this will be sort of simple and digestible, and I know what the space is, and then all of a sudden you get these really dark, really harrowing compositions when you're going into spaces where the
Hmm.
anxiety and whatnot is brewing more strongly, or you get these like themes that you cannot get out of your head. That I think it's the Appy Foothills theme.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
I the like the second I heard it, I was just like, oh, this is going to be in my head for the rest of my life.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's just it is such an amazing supplement to that game, and
Yeah.
it creates the space to really breathe life into all of the interactions that you're having. I think the Celeste is kind of similar in like there's a
Hmm.
bunch of work that they're doing on the back end for it to feel as simple and smooth as it is for the player.
Hmm.
And they're doing like there's a lot of care that shows in that heavy lift, to
Yeah.
be able to make the player experience just incredible.
Yeah. And reading what Lena wrote in terms of the Medium article, I mean, Lena goes through every single track and then talks through like how, I think what I found most impressive was how later in the game there are four trials that you go through,
Hmm.
and each area, there's like a rainforest, a mountain, I forget, like each area has its own
Yeah, it's a
biome.
swamp.
And yeah, and what's incredible is that not only does each biome have its own like biome theme, but because these are the quests that sort of train up the wielder to be prepared to officially take on the role and be the successor, the brush has its own theme, and each of the four tracks has an element of the brush's theme. So once you put them together, they have all four elements of the brush's motif. It's just like that kind of thought is just incredible to me, and just in the composition of this. So again, highly encourage you read more of those details because it sounds impressive, and it sound like I have now emotional ties anytime I hear some of these tracks, and to see some of the additional thought put in just made me appreciate it so much more.
Yeah, it is it's like Outer Wilds
Yeah.
level. I will say I feel like I can listen to this soundtrack on a regular basis and feel comfortable with it. Which I cannot say for the Outer Wilds soundtrack. Like there's something that happens the when the Timberhearth theme starts playing and I'm just like, oh no, nope, that's
Hmm.
the soul.
Yep.
But there is a yeah, there you get to have a real connection
Hmm.
to the themes, to the compositions. Yeah, just incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like we've talked, mechanics, video, visuals, audio. Um, we're gonna do full like spoilers for the story, so we don't have to spend too much time here. But I guess in terms of the story and maybe tying into like what kind of player would you hope picks this game up? I'm very curious, the type of, like, not just like gamer, I guess, because that feels like so restrictive. What type of person do you feel like would most appreciate this story and this experience as a whole?
I kind of want you to start. I kind of want like
Oh
I hate
God.
yeah, I hate to Uno reverse, but like I I just I feel like so much of how I would approach it is very parallel to a lot of like IntelliGame style discussion, right?
Hmm.
People who want to slow down and talk about a thing, right? I kind of want to like what feels right to you? Like
Mm.
where does the space stick out?
I mean, I think the person I would hope plays this, um, I think anyone who wants like a really charming indie, who loves story, and that's kind of like a given. Um, I would hope that a person who is feeling like really stuck, um, really down on themselves currently, and maybe it would be the type of person who maybe sees some of these themes and doesn't want to play it because it maybe addresses it
Right.
and it hits a little too close to home. But I feel like more so than a lot of games that I've played that say they address things like creative block or burnout or what it means to be a part of a legacy and wonder what it means to choose to continue that legacy or to be a part of that legacy continuing. I feel like if those are kind of questions you're grappling with and you're struggling with, even though it might not feel great, I think this is the kind of game you should play. I feel like more than any game that I've seen trying to address these types of themes, what I appreciate most and what I think would help players and people who are just feeling this stuck feeling, is that this game really gives you that time to process how you're feeling. A lot of games I've noticed that focus on narrative do keep you moving. And that's great and that can be really valuable. But I think because of the personal nature, especially in terms of self confidence and value, this game is unique in that it, uncomfortable or not, it does provide and sort of force you because you do have to like take time to color in spaces to progress a lot near the middle there. It forces you to take into account like what's going on. So yeah, I feel like I would want people who are feeling not great about themselves to play this game, which sounds a little sad, but I feel like this is maybe the best game for it, honestly.
Do you feel like I guess what were I mean you
Mm.
expert in your field, been working at this a long time, done a variety of things, right? Um, and yet it sounded to me like hearing you describing that, like it seems like it still gave some space for you to like unearth and do some processing. Like, what are some of the ways that you
Yeah.
feel like what ways were you the person who needed to like play this game?
Mm. Um, yeah, I think, and we'll definitely get more into it as we like talk like more specifics with the story. But I guess maybe easing into some of those spoilers at this point. Let's just put the flag up now.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
Um,
I didn't.
no, I think this is like it's a really good segue. I think. It's really hard because I think what this game did beautifully is address a variety of elements that each could have honestly been its own arc in its
Mhm.
own game. Um, I think one of the stories, very small character that I honestly don't even remember this character's name, but it was an otter building a sandcastle.
Oh right.
Um,
Hold on, I will go. I
and
will go.
yeah, if you can find it, that would be awesome. But I think this is a specific example of like, this is a story that I needed to see and hear where they had I forget exactly what, but something happened that forced them to essentially put their dream or their goal aside because they had to prioritize this thing, this sort of, I think it was like a tragedy or a loss of some sort. They're like, I have to take care of this first and sort of pause on what I want to do. And so now I'm just sitting here building a sandcastle, processing, and I'm not doing the thing I love. And I think that's okay for now. I'm just talking to you and building this sandcastle.
Yeah.
And like that was one of those moments where I was like, God, I really needed to hear that. And it's like an quote, NPC nothing conversation. So that's just like one way that this game just hit and like told me sort of the thing that I've been, I don't know, not necessarily wanting to hear, but just something that really resonated. And I think overall, this game's message of self confidence seems so simplistic.
Mm,
It's like beyond self confidence. It's about like your relationship to your craft and how it can feed you, how it can like if you're not careful take from you sometimes. Um I don't know. I think it just does it in such a nuanced way. Honestly, having just finished it, it's a bit hard for me to put into words because I think it has so accurately hit a lot of the pain points, I would say, and the frustrations and like the vulnerabilities that comes with being passionate about something and wanting to make a difference in the world with
hmm.
that thing that you feel so passionate about, but not always feeling like you can.
Yeah. Um, I, yep. I think it might be oyster. Um,
Oyster. That sounds about
but
right.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure. There are a couple of I'm also now I'm like, oh, I'm frustrated at how few resources there are that go into the deep dives of like
Yeah.
what this game has to offer. Um,
Hmm.
but I feel like that is one of the things that is so interesting in this game is that like
Hmm.
you're playing as, canon name Pizza. I'm curious
Yeah.
what your character's name is, but you're playing as this character who gets the opportunity to do the thing and manifest their craft and have it
Hmm.
impact the world and like have people in the world prop that work up and like deal
Hmm.
with those creative struggles. Um, but you also interact with a bunch of people whose relationship to their creativity is very different. And that idea of like, yep, and here's the thing that I wanted to do, but this is what I'm doing right now because life is calling me to do other things.
Yeah.
It's I think it's a tough narrative to see alongside taking on your own sort of hero's journey esque whatever, right?
Hmm.
Um, yeah, because I think yeah, there are a lot of ways, especially as we age and have more
Yeah.
things around us that we have to focus on and take care of. So yeah, I
Hmm.
appreciate that. That's yeah, I think that's a really tough thing to confront, and wonderful that a game can give you space to do that.
Yeah. I'm curious. We're going to be flipping the normal format. Normally at the end, I ask sort of that reflection question that we posited in the first episode, but I feel like I would be really curious because it does dovetail into sort of what I was speaking to here. I'm curious about your relationship. I think I said art in the question initially, but I think I'm going to change a word and I'm going to make this note for later
Yeah,
when I create a lesson plan so people can teach using Chicory because this
there you
game is
go.
that good.
It is.
I'm curious about your relationship to your craft, whatever that craft is in your head.
Yeah.
And in playing Chicory, how, if anything, changed, evolved, or really came to light about your relationship with your craft as you played Chicory?
Oof. I think one of the things that is hardest for me to sit with, um, mm, I still one of the things that's hardest for me to sit with is that like to me, Chicory is a better wielder than I ever will be. Just at the end of
Mm.
the day, just every time there's a place where are we in spoilers territory? Can we do the
Yeah, I think we can be in spoilers territory.
I was so thrilled to see Chicory respond so positively to me giving her the portrait that I made of her, right?
Yeah.
Which I understand even just with the base set of tools that I have available, it's not gonna like quote unquote look great, right?
Right.
For context, like one of the pictures you get to draw, right, is like Chicory is like, hey, well, why don't you draw me? And you have a little reference image off to the side, and you make whatever it is, and the game is so consistently uh proud of you, right? Like there are
Hmm.
some people who will, naysay. There's some critics in there for sure.
Right.
But for the most part, the people who are part of your community are really proud of you and are very encouraging. And then I get the picture back that Chicory does of me,
Right.
and it's gorgeous, and the shading and the whatever, right? And it's like it is I think it's still very hard for me to sit with the idea that like my best may not ever be as good as somebody else's best. Even their just off day, I'm kind of depressed. This is the thing that I threw together.
Mm.
Um, that I want to believe that I can just walk into a thing, or if I just grind hard enough, whatever the thing is, that I will be at the things that I care about, that I
Yeah.
can be the top tier, the best of the, whatever. And there's a weird tension that I can recognize when I see it and have this feeling of like, yeah, well, no, you're just humoring me. Like you don't actually care about this,
Mm.
like, oh, okay, you're like, oh, that was so great, and you did this, and it's one, whatever. But I feel like I'm being placated when
Hmm.
I don't think that that's the intention, right? The goal is to be able to appreciate that, like, hey, you took the time, you did this thing, you shared this thing, but it's hard for me to get that comparison engine out of my head. And I think this game forces me to take a look at that comparison engine in a way that is uncomfortable, but is a very real part of what it means, I think, to participate in my craft, especially considering how much of my craft constantly exists in a space of algorithms and metrics
Mm.
and sponsorship opportunities afforded to people who have X number of zeros or a number of
Hmm.
commas in their view count. And um and that's hard because the other thing that I think the game is really sitting with, like the truth that I think that it offers is that like your technical expertise is not the only thing that matters. Your
Hmm.
ability to show up and do the thing matters. Your ability to stand up for others matters. Like
Hmm.
your technical capability is just one of a host of stats that
Hmm.
are the summary of you and your impact on the world. And I think that's one of the things that makes pizza so that I caught on second play that I didn't catch as or I didn't appreciate as much on first play. Pizza's not here for the bullshit. Like
No.
if you would like to talk shit about somebody connected to pizza, the brush goes away. They've got hands for you. Like
Hmm.
and there is something in pizza's ability to really step in and step up for other people
Yeah.
that tons of other people who have more technical ability, who have more opportunity, who have more prowess, whatever, that they do not have. And so
Mm-hmm.
there is yeah, I don't know. I think that is a theme that really stands out to me is that it's like you may not be 10 in every category. You also don't need to be. And there are
Mm-hmm.
places where your 10 in this category is actually going to far outweigh the the 10 in this other category that you're envious of, right? Like
Right.
that's how community works. And that is yeah, that's a thing that has been hard to is still hard to sit
Mm,
with. Even as I recognize the like the compliment that's inside the whatever,
yeah.
it's still really hard to like I mean, we've had these conversations even just interpersonally, right? Like you
Mm-hmm.
are like such an all-star in a bunch of ways that make me really insecure. And like being able to find this space to appreciate like who you are and the time that we're able to spend together and the ways that we have our different strengths and finding ways to let those complement each other as opposed to like setting us at odds
Mm-hmm.
is like that's the battle and it's worth fighting but it doesn't make it less difficult.
Yeah. Well, and I think what's interesting to me also, because as I was playing this, I felt again, I'm like, this game captures those very human and real feelings in a nutshell so perfectly. But yeah, it's this idea of like, okay, what was it? That the balance and sort of the ability to understand that like it's not placating when someone is telling
Yeah.
you like I appreciate this about you, and yeah, the struggle to take it at face value and trust in your community that when they're communicating that to you, ooh, that they aren't implying anything more or less than what they are saying, which
Hmm.
I also, again, as we've talked about, I struggle with that as well, where it's like there's got to be something else, right? There's some either ulterior reasoning, ulterior motive. There's going to be
Hmm.
something there that's like not what they're saying, and I'm supposed to interpret the unsaid to understand what's going on here.
Right.
But this game so wonderfully puts you in a space, and by the end, I'm like, yeah, I should just like if people are in my community, I should just trust them,
Hmm.
which is so hard sometimes to do. Yeah.
Yeah. It's they there are so many it's weird how many different themes they're
Mm-hmm.
able to tackle and how many between the sort of like main plot and then a bunch of sort of like vignette essentially size
Mm-hmm.
stories are able to really yeah just claw the emotional levels in it's so
Yeah.
good.
I mean, just as one specific example, again, near the end of the game, I'm forgetting the anxious lizard. Um, their
Oh,
name, the super anxious lizard that
yeah,
you meet.
dang it. I
Yeah,
just
if
have
you
been
can
writing down of it. Yep,
find their
I'm
name.
looking. Yep.
But what's incredible is when you meet them, they are like they're super anxious, they're stressed about everything throughout the whole game. They vocalize feeling very inadequate, very
Lemon.
unprepared. Lemon, yes, lemon.
Hmm.
And oh, what absolute like I'm getting kind of choked up thinking about it because it was such a moment is at the
Hmm.
end when your powers are taken away and they have the ability to swim in water and they can actually take you so that you're able to go do the thing that you're meant to do. That for me was like another one of those magical moments that this game puts in that gets you to really see in real time like that theme, which sounds cheesy, but it's like our differences, our strengths, that's what makes us stronger
Yeah.
together. That's like just the epitome of that. Ugh, it's just so good.
Yeah. Yeah. I This game,
This
it's
game is
just,
so good.
it really is. And now I'm like sitting here. I was like, as you talked about it, I was like, oh, now this makes me wonder, like, where can I find the collector's edition of? Like, it feels like a game that I'm like, why do I not have the physical?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I also it's funny, and we can, we'll do some semblance of maybe a
yeah.
explanation of the story and actually delve into things more in a more organized fashion, but this game
Yes.
is just too good.
Yeah.
Um yeah, I feel like I was telling Tegan this earlier today. I'm like, I would have to recreate the list and think through it, but this is now on a short list for me as one of the best games I've
Oh,
ever
yeah.
played. And that's putting it, I mean, that's putting it up there with 1,000 times resist.
Yep.
It's putting it up there with some really good heavy hitters. So yeah, this game is one I am looking forward to replaying because there's so much layered in. I know that on this first playthrough I have not actually gone through everything the way that I would like to.
And the cool thing about, I think one of the things when I think about sort of my similar, like if I was like, this is my, this is the IntelliGame canon. These are the, the
Mm-hmm.
games that I'm like, if you, the Café coterie. I don't know if the coterie is
Mm-hmm.
the right word, but anyway, like one of the cool things about this game being on those lists is how incredibly accessible the gameplay is.
Yes.
Like, I love to recommend Outer Wilds. I love to recommend Thousand Times Resist. I love,
Exactly.
but like there's a certain amount of like game knowledge
Mm-hmm.
and navigation of video games that it feels like you really need to be able to dive into what those games have to offer.
Yeah.
And to be able to like, a thousand times resist, like the pacing gets a little strange in some places. Like if you've got more video game, whatever, and are tied into it, like you can make some space for it. Prove you're
Mm-hmm.
human. I don't care. The second, whatever it is,
Yeah.
the second it shows up, that's where they will own my life. Um, Prove You Human being the game that is the follow up from Sunset Visitor, but Chicory by comparison, like you could put
Mm-hmm.
this game in front of an 8-year old,
Yeah.
and like the ability to play this game and to go through like the themes and whatnot are going to be pretty different, and like there are a lot of spaces in here that I think are, more, they're not age appropriate for adults in the fact that in the way that they would be like unacceptable for a child to play, right? But
Mm-hmm.
they're like dealing with these elements of humanity and adulthood, and oftentimes loss and disappointment and things that
Mm-hmm.
you may not. But either way, anybody could play this. Like I feel like
Yeah.
I could put this in front of my parents who like do not have dual stick dexterity, right? Like, and they could still play this game and like get the feelings of creative fulfillment
Yeah.
from doing a painting, from coloring a landscape in just the right way, like,
Mm-hmm.
and there are so few games that I feel
Yeah.
like also hit that level.
Mm-hmm. I love that you mentioned. I quite literally had the same conversation with Tegan this morning when I was talking about this game because it is one of those games where yeah, I cannot recommend a lot of my favorite games to everybody. There's always some sort of caveat that I have to put in like, oh, if you don't like first person perspective,
Hmm.
can't do this one. Yeah, Thousand Times Resist gets real esoteric
Yeah.
and vague, and I love it for that, but it's like it will lose a lot of people. And yeah, Chicory is accessible both in its structure, in its story, and it just everything. So yeah, it's making me rethink a lot of my like, okay, what would be my top 10, top 5 indie game
Yeah.
sort of picks of all time because this this is now on there somewhere on the list for sure. Just to go a little bit more like narratively,
Hmm.
chronologically through the story. I still want to like as things come up, we're going to talk about them however they come up, but just to help spark our memory
Hmm.
and spark those questions. We'll start with chapter 1. Again, we've got 10 chapters, easy breezy. What I love so much is the optimism this game starts with. Even though all the color of the world is gone, everything, this is like an apocalyptic event,
Right.
honestly. The color has disappeared.
Yeah.
It normally fades gradually and the wielder like touches it up, but this is like it's all gone all at once. The wielder, Chicory, is nowhere to be found. Your pup, what did you name your pup this time
Uh,
around?
it was a really emotional experience to do so because this game only has one save file.
Mm-hmm.
And so in order for me to start again, I had to let my old save file
Oh
go.
my
And I
gosh.
hadn't played through the game to be able to I was like, oh, I'm under a time crunch. I need it. It's fine. I'll
Mm-hmm.
just let it go. Um, and it was, yeah, it was this weird so I wanted to name, they ask you to name your character, like, what's your favorite food? And you
Yeah.
don't, which I actually is one of, I think, the most brilliant parts of the
Yes.
game. Um,
Yes.
you have to name this character something that you love, but that is not you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, or you're supposed to name this character something you love that is not you. So when
Yeah.
this game starts having discussions about, hey, and by the way, this thing, Fruit Snacks, which is what I had named,
Mm-hmm.
the original character's name was Mac and Cheese,
Yeah.
but now this is Fruit Snacks.
Fruit Snacks is a great name.
Yeah. When they start getting real personal and talking to Fruit Snacks, you identify,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you attach to it, but it's not speaking directly to you. And
Mm-hmm.
considering some of the ways that it gets to some kind of heavy and almost can be dangerous themes in depression, and anxiety and the ways that you relate to the creativity, I really feel like having that kind of safety barrier of
Yeah.
you're not using my name, right? You're not even and not, I didn't even name the character Telly, which is the sort of stand-in that we use in a telegame.
Mm-hmm.
And so it creates, I think, a, enough emotional distance to be able to more safely explore the themes of the game in a way that
Yeah.
I don't know if that was the intention, but I think is brilliant in the design.
Yeah. I have to imagine it has to be, especially considering, and I'm sure there's a name for this technique, but in like art therapy, in general therapy, when you utilize puppets or dolls to help, like, especially for children to be able to
Hmm.
process or vocalize things, it's like that is a specific strategy used to allow people to confront challenging
Oh, that's
emotional
incredible.
topics that they wouldn't normally do if you ask them just like how what was your childhood like.
Hmm.
That's a bit a just like so intimidating, and b it's like a lot of people would not be able to just speak openly or vulnerably about things that you know they probably feel emotional about. So I think you're absolutely right. I feel like I would be surprised if it wasn't intentional
Yeah.
because it is so like spot on to allow you to be able to take this journey emotionally.
Yeah. What was your pup's name?
K barbecue. KBBQ.
KBBQ. I almost named it BBQ. So there
Oh
was
my
all, yeah,
gosh,
we were
yes.
very close.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And what was incredible is because, I mentioned last time, but I've started this game a couple of times, uh, I had forgotten. And so in my head, I'm like, yeah, I love K barbecue. And I just like went for it. And I didn't remember until like, after you hit it and immediately you like learn your name. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Like,
Hmm.
so again, it's just such, again, a delight because I mean, who doesn't love food and who doesn't love, like you said, it's your favorite food. So you're immediately endeared to this character and you
Hmm.
want what's best for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
And it's great that I think, to like you said, the way that there is so much optimism, like
Hmm.
your character, like pizza, I guess, do we canon pizza,
I guess we can say
whatever would,
pizza. Yeah.
I don't
You
know,
can
but then I
also
want to
just say
say yeah,
because
pizza.
everyone knows fruit snacks,
Yeah.
so we can say fruit
Yeah,
snacks and K
and you can say
barbecue.
K barbecue, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but Fruit Snacks starts as a janitor, right?
Yeah.
Like, is excited about the idea of being the janitor for the wielder, who,
Hmm.
frankly, as you get early on in the game, doesn't really even know who you are. Is like, oh, you're you're like a janitor here, right?
Yeah.
I- and yet she's still just like they've got so much energy about like what they're
Hmm.
doing and their ability to do it. Um, and I think that it would, in many games and in many pieces of media in general, if you aren't like the journey, the hero's journey is that you are unfulfilled and miserable, not
Hmm.
doing the thing that the narrative gives you the space to do. But
Yeah.
like even though there's definitely a lot, there's a lot of like discussion about wanting to be wanting to be able to follow that creative passion, wanting to be the wielder, and also the sibling comparisons that we'll end up talking about.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, like I don't know, like Fruit Snack starts off and is just kind of vibing, and that
Yeah.
is kind of cool to see.
It's well, and there's like, yeah, like optimism. There's like a bit of mischief.
Hmm.
You feel the spark of like for me with K barbecue picking up the brush and being like, I mean, I could just
It's
take this
just
for a little ride, just like
mhm,
take it for a little spin. Um, no one will be any the wiser. No harm will be done. I'll just help out.
right.
I think that's like that is the sort of self-assuredness and confidence and just like love of the craft that you're just like, I am just so excited to like hold this brush.
Hmm.
I'm so excited just to like color in just a little bit until, of course I'll give it back, when it's time, but like just the ability to do it. And it's kind of funny because like I think about, for example, with dance, especially when I first, as an adult, was like, I just want to dance. I just want to take classes and like, I just want to be in this space where the thing happens. And I don't care if I'm performing. I don't care if I'm good. I am just like excited to be here. And that for me is like where Barbecue was at, where it's like,
Hmm.
I'm I know I'm a janitor. I'm just excited to be able to do this thing once. And like that, so almost like just the pure joy and again like optimism and confidence in that, where you're not thinking about the result. You're
Hmm.
not thinking like, is the coloring going to be good for everyone? Am I going to achieve this certain thing with the coloring? You're just happy to do it. And oh,
Couldn't be
it's
me.
just really great. Yeah,
It's so great. It's
I know. Fruit snacks was not all about it. You know what I mean? It's like they're just there.
well, but and that's what I think is part of another thing that's really beautiful about making the character distant from you is that
Hmm.
I've I I think a lot of the discussion that I have, especially with other creatives, is about that sort of like the self-doubt,
Hmm.
the fear, the shame, the, whatever. Like those are spaces that I feel like if I made a character that was like me, my name, and the first thing that I see is them being all happy-go-lucky about whatever, there'd be this sort of
Yeah.
like dissonance of like, well, I mean, I guess that's what this character
Sure.
is, whatever. But it's Fruit Snacks. Like Fruit Snacks gets to be whoever they want, right? Um,
Hmm.
and of course, like there also is that element of I think a lot of the ways that we relate to or talk about the sort of struggle and the whatever is like we've already been through the process a bunch. We've
Yeah.
done that creative work. We've, gone through some of those cycles. Fruit Snacks is just getting their start. And so being
Right.
able to walk into it and do it for the passion, for the love of, for the excitement of
Hmm.
being able to make that mark, I think it can be a hard experience to connect to when
Hmm.
you are, like you said, caught up so much in the thought of like, how is this going to look to these other people? How is it going to be
Right.
received? What's my next thing?
Yeah. I wanted to shout out Katie in Discord who linked a video called I think it's called I Drew Every Day for 6 months and all I got was an existential crisis. um, at the start of this video, so this YouTuber, I think Ricky Hirsch is their name. Ricky talks about how initially they'd done this challenge where they're like, I'm going to draw, I think it was something like once a week or, for a period of time, and they felt this huge amount of growth and they were so excited because when you're new at something, when you haven't done it before, you also get the joy of being like, again, I'm doing the thing. You can
Hmm.
see progress because you have you have so much to learn that anything you do is going to be an improvement.
Right.
Anything you do is going to be better than the last one you did. And this video talks about how, okay, you did this first challenge, felt like you did so much. What happened if I drew every day for 6 months? And that friction of having the like incremental progress or sometimes plateaus or what feels like going backwards, because once you start truly practicing and truly getting into honing a craft, that's when
Yep.
that tension happens, right? And that's when that doubt comes in. So again, I think especially in this first part of the game, when you are fresh, to this world, and K barbecue or fruit snacks is fresh to this experience, they captured that feeling of like just starting to learn something so beautifully, because you are just like, I'm here, I'm coloring the world, this is great.
Mm-hmm. The y There is an interesting tension
Hmm.
that I would love to pick your brain about, in that, like, I feel like when fruit snacks receives criticism, especially like
Hmm.
often in the early on in the game, I feel like I, as the player, can point at that person and be like, that person's an asshole. Like, I might find out later that there's a reason that whatever the thing is, right?
Yeah.
But more often than not, like, when you when you do a thing, there are a lot of people who are really glad and really excited that you did it.
Hmm.
Um, and now I feel like, to take on creativity in 2026 and to
Mm.
share it on like social media, there's instantly this feedback machine that oftentimes, even if it, like, it almost can be worse in that it can be indifferent, right? That,
Right.
like, you post a thing and it gets like 2 likes,
Hmm.
or nothing happens. You're like, this has been live for a day and nobody has said anything. Um, like, did you feel some of that tension of like, the game is giving me a bunch of really good support and feedback, and I
Mm.
wonder, like, how do you access that experience in 2026? Like,
Hmm.
maybe you just create a thing and never do anything online. You're like, yep, take your first year, your first couple years, it doesn't exist on the internet. But
Hmm.
does any of that resonate with you?
It does. What's interesting to me, because for me at least, if I am creating something, I am doing it because I want it to be seen.
Oh,
And so,
mhm.
and so I think what's really challenging, especially like in an ideal world, it's like, okay, well, maybe I don't put it on the internet. But again, I think in an ideal world, and I do this to some degree where it's like, if I make something, having specific people in mind so that I can share with them, like one on one. And I'm like, hey, here's the thing that I made. I want to share it with you because I'm proud. We have this connection. And I know that there's going to be this sort of reciprocation and
Mhm.
excitement and like joy because you also care about me. But at least for me, there is a part of me that wants more. um, if I'm being truly honest,
Mhm.
I want more people to see. I want more people to be excited because that's just a goal that I have. And
Mhm.
so it's hard because for my personal goals and what I create, like putting it online is going to be a part of the equation for a lot of what I do. Not everything,
Mhm.
like for example, dance. I'm not posting online currently because I need that to be for me personally.
Mhm.
And a select few I will show the videos to, and it will never go online. Um, but something like, especially games related stuff, I want it to be seen. And so it's really hard because it is that like, it's funny because, I've had a small handful of pieces of content go viral. And what has always surprised me is how it can feel so empty and like nothing. Like it's like the number go up and there is the short burst dopamine hit of like, wow, number is big. This is great. And I am proud and I'm happy when people comment and engage. Like,
Hmm.
that's still there, but it doesn't feel at the end of the day any more valuable than me individually going to a person and being like, I'm proud of this. Will you partake in being proud with me?
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I think playing this game in a very roundabout way to go back to your original question, I feel like playing this game reminded me how much I need to not just simply post online, but actually have people to be able to share the things
Yeah,
I create with at the end of the day.
that makes so much sense.
Hmm.
I guess I didn't really think about it that way. That like it does. It feels very different to like getting the internet points is
Hmm.
it's the segue that we need to be able to like do the work sustainably, right? Like
Right.
unfortunately without enough internet points, people will be like, "Oh, I love your commentary, but I'm not going to pay you for it," right? But maybe I'll give
Hmm.
you a free key. Um, but wow, does it mean something when like a colleague or somebody who like is thinking about it the same like reads it and says like, "Oh, yeah, actually,
Hmm.
that's really cool. Or, like this didn't quite hit for me. And then there's like a conversation that's there.
Yeah.
There was a video that I was watching by a psychologist named Dr. Tracy Marks. And
Hmm.
this is a discussion about sort of like the way that like in relationships, there's a difference between sort of being I can't remember how she put it, but it was this difference between sort of being like heard and being like understood. That somebody who can
Ooh.
like really care about what you're talking about and pay attention and like give you feedback and talk about a thing. And that all can be really good, but it still is really different than when somebody is like able to give you the feedback that lets you know that they're like resonating with the thing, right? That
Yeah.
there's something that shifts when you get that sort of level of like, oh, and we're on the same wavelength about what this means or what the discussion is, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And yeah, I wonder about like because it's not like a book club, right? It's not
Right.
like oh, okay, and every month we have this group of people or whatever. There's like something about being around another group of people who are dialed in the way that you are dialed in.
Right.
And yeah, you don't necessarily get that from the social media points.
Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard, and it's like I think what's interesting to me is you also have within the group of people that you need sort of on your side when you're creating things. I've realized for myself I need different types of people for different emotional supports.
Yeah.
Where it's like I have, and you see this in Chicory too. You have folks in, you know, for K barbecue, like Clementine,
Mm-hmm.
K barbecue sister,
Yep.
like no matter what, Clementine's a ride or die.
Mm-hmm.
Clementine will give you a hug, support your work, like be there for you emotionally whenever you need. And like I know I need a Clementine. I need someone who I know loves me and can just like be that person,
Yeah.
that's just a rock that even if maybe it's not like everything I needed it to be, when I create something, they're there to like give me that consoling like support.
Yeah.
But you also need the people who are like able to actually give you critique and feedback and be that person that's like on your side and dialed into like the craft of what you're
Mm-hmm.
doing. And so it's interesting. I've learned for myself, like when I feel supported in my work, it's because I have the all of that sort of in the spectrum of people who can support me as just like, you love me and you just are proud of me and I need this, but also people who can support me in like understanding what my goal is and knowing how to support me in the goal of what I'm trying to create.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Yeah, I didn't think about it that way. That like for me, I do feel so much more like I need a chicory. Like I need a
Hmm.
we are and of course chicory to pizza for the better part of the game is a mentor, but
Right.
like a colleague, like somebody else who is
Yes.
like, yo, we are exploring this thing, we're diving into this thing. When I talk about this thing, you get it. Like
Hmm.
that. And I like I love Clementine. I love my parents and like that kind of thing.
Hmm.
But it does for me. There's a yeah. I feel the most support when I have that like creative scaffolding. The like when I
Hmm.
look at this thing from this angle, you're also looking at it from an angle, and I can see where that's going. That's
Right.
I didn't think about that. That's hmm.
Hmm.
Okay, and take that to therapy. Cool.
Yeah. Oh
Love
God.
that.
Love it.
Love that. Thanks, Chicory.
Oh my gosh, Chicory once again.
Yeah.
Um, just doing all the good work for us. What I think is interesting too is that very quickly in Chicory, again, you know there's something wrong in the world, and you meet. And you actually are confronted with the legacy of the wielder immediately, like
Yep.
leaving the first room. You start in at the studio, and the first hallway you walk into as you gain control of, KBBQ or your character is the hallway of wielders. Like you are confronted with the history that this is a legacy, this is an institution, this is like sacred in
Mm-hmm.
terms of how this world is structured. And you meet actually Chicory's mentor, Blackberry, very early on as you're investigating what's going on in the woods and why this corruption has taken the color away. I'm really curious. Blackberry is a really complex character. I found Blackberry to be really fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of your first impressions of Chicory's mentor? And I guess just because we can skip around, I'm
Sure.
curious how your impressions of Blackberry evolved and what it meant for you to like think about mentorship in especially creative fields.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. She was Blackberry, but I'll take that wherever. No,
Is it
uh,
Blackberry? Oh, I
no.
see what you're saying. For a second, I was like, did I get it wrong?
You're like,
No.
no, was
Okay.
it?
Yep.
No, that's no, totally no. Yeah, no, it's just jokes. But yeah, Blackberry is such a complex character, especially because so much of the interaction with her, especially right off the bat, is there's so much static, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is again, I really admire how like Fruit Snacks is able to walk into a conversation with like the mentor of her idol and like hear this kind of like, Blackberry's like, oh, she should have been able to do better and she should have been able to handle this and blah blah blah. And Fruit Snacks is like, shut the fuck up. You're
Yeah.
not gonna talk. You're not gonna talk about chicory like that in front of me. Like
Yeah.
there are parts of me that like I felt like, oh, there's some like Stan idol culture here. There's like a like
Yeah. A little
right,
bit.
like I say that not being familiar enough, but like the sense of like Fruit Snacks has does not just like when you go through and you check the paintings of each of the different wielders, like
Mm-hmm.
she knows each of these different wielders. She has opinions on their styles and like
Yep.
has made an informed decision as to why she loves Chicory and why Chicory is such a great wielder to her. So like it is really interesting to see that discussion and sort of like then having that discussion with Blackberry and not having that same sort of like, oh my gosh, you trained my idol, whatever. And I think Blackberry coming in as Chicory's mentor
Mm-hmm.
is tough because I think for a lot of us, and I there were places where I did feel like some like these are the expectations that I felt parallels with being a marginalized person, right? The
Mm-hmm.
sort of like the expectation of this is the way that you play through the pain. This is the way that you know, doesn't matter what the thing is. You're going to show up. You're going to do it. You're going to do it well. And then I'm thankful to have not had as much sort of outright negative feedback as BlackBerry seems so readily able to give.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard dealing with a character who seems to be so pessimistic and so critical, and understanding, as you learn more about her and her experience with cardamom,
Yep.
like an intergenerational trauma.
Mm-hmm.
These are the ways that she didn't have somebody, she thought that somebody was going to come in for her and didn't. And now these are the ways that she pushes that trauma and that impact and is trying to take care of that thing, but causes her own
Mm-hmm.
damage along the way. And then Chicory, who doesn't even intend to take on the role of mentorship, when she ends up taking on the role of mentorship, ends up passing on some of her own unresolved trauma and damage, because that's unfortunately how a lot of peopling goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised is a weird phrase to use, but I was pleasantly surprised with how this game does go into the topic of intergenerational
Yeah.
trauma and how we perpetuate systems, even if we feel like even if we were hurt by them and want to change them, the ways that systems sort of restrict us and force us into these paths and behaviors
Hmm.
that continue said system, because that was a theme I was not anticipating going into this game. I think, yeah, BlackBerry at first, it's very easy to say, it's similar. It's the conversation I feel like we had with A Thousand Times Resist too,
Hmm.
where it's like it's very easy to go in and say, "Oh, BlackBerry is so mean, and I can't believe
Yep.
that she is doing this and treating Chicory like this, and doesn't believe in her." But I think this idea of in recognizing like BlackBerry isn't a villain. Um, BlackBerry is trying to also maintain what I think she believes is these traditions
Hmm.
and duties, and think about the people who are impacted by the color loss, but also knows the responsibility of the weaver and is trying to balance all of that, and really does not have the tools to be able to do so,
Yep.
because she hasn't been provided with any support of her own. And yeah, I was just the nuance within these characters and the arcs that we see them go through is just really, really beautiful and heartbreaking, honestly,
Hmm.
to witness. As you see her throughout the game, uh, in even some of the wielder trials near the very end, and like that impact is so profound on Chicory. So
Uh-huh.
yeah. But within this first area, as you're meeting Blackberry, you're meeting all of these other inhabitants who are sort of panicking. They're panicking over what's going on, but excited because you seem to have the brush and are coloring in the world, so
Hmm.
maybe things are going to be okay. You approach this corrupted area where this source seems, or at least to be a source, if not the source of what's going on. And you confront this, like, I called it the eye in the
Hmm.
void. I don't know actually what the name of this
I
boss really
think that's
was.
about right. There's a
Is
hold on,
it?
let me pull up I know there was a mention in the PDF. And I'm
Hmm.
pretty sure they call it the eye in the art book. Yeah.
Okay, because I was like, and it's a recurring sort of manifestation of this corruption that you are seeing. It's sort of the void. Anytime you see this negative, like the negative
Hmm.
colors, inverted colors, this is that representation of the void. And I feel like having it be an eye is a really interesting choice. And I was curious and I wanted to know your thoughts on like, why do you think out of everything, especially at the start, when you first see this manifestation, why do you think they chose the eye in particular?
Yeah. I think it's the like to me, it feels like a very a, a conceptual version of the inner critic, right? That
Mm-hmm.
like it would feel disingenuous, I think, to right at the beginning have fruit snacks dealing with like a self-critical version of fruit snacks in in their head, right? Like that would be, yeah, that wouldn't feel like it made sense, especially considering how upbeat and excited and whatnot
Right.
the you start off with the brush and being able to do the thing, right? But I think it's that sort of the way that the suspicion and the self-doubt, it starts off kind of like it's a creeping feeling, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's, I think this, for me, that feeling of sort of being watched, of being observed and monitored and waiting for
Mm.
the the place where you screw up, the place where a thing goes wrong, a place where you could have done better. The sort of sense of like having an eye and then multiple eyes always on you, always watching, always following you. Like that
Mm-hmm.
starts that process of maybe I do need to be a little bit, maybe that wasn't that good actually. Maybe I am not gonna. Yeah, I think for me that, yeah, that makes the eye pretty significant.
Mm-hmm.
How about you?
Yeah, I thought similarly where I think my initial reaction is like the inner critic essentially at play. But the more I played and the more we see the eye motif and I kind of realized how K Barbecue started to absorb this new role and settle into this new role. The especially like the visual of these rotating massive eyes as you're
Hmm.
trying to like color them in this sort of battle situation. It also I came to a similar conclusion where it's like, oh, this feels like the audience watching. This feels like being perceived
Hmm.
and having it kind of burn a little bit because maybe you're not ready to be perceived or you don't know if you're ready to be perceived and you're not excited about finding out if that is or is not the case. So for me, yeah, it's like, yeah, just this idea of perception and like being witnessed and honestly like it's sort of learning to build a plane as you're flying it, but then everyone else is watching you while you do it. You know, that's
Hmm.
kind of how those battles felt for me.
Hmm. And it also, I found it harder to do. There are places where I say that I do feel like the mechanics, like I'm so glad that it's on controller,
Hmm.
that it's accessible for console players. But wow, do especially like those fights feel so much better on keyboard and mouse.
Oh my gosh.
Um,
Yeah.
Being able to like yeah, I had made that statement about like, oh, you don't really need like dual stick dexterity. You do for those boss fights. Um,
Yeah.
and especially if your movement sensitivity is low, um,
Hmm.
then like trying to get the brush to move fast enough to track the enemies and whatever, like it's tough.
Yeah.
It makes
There's,
me wish that they would do a Switch 2 version.
oh my God, yes. That would be incredible with the mouse
Hmm.
functionality. Yeah, I think playing it on Steam Deck, that was other than not being able to draw as precisely as I wanted to in many cases. Yeah, these battles for the most part were okay. Kind of yeah, like I don't know why it just made me think a little bit of Undertale in terms of like the constant motion and you're trying to dodge things a lot of the time. Um, Again, they added dual stick, twin stick sort of element of having to color in usually your enemy sort of figure while you're dodging.
Hmm.
Oof, rough.
It's tough.
There
Yep.
was one battle in particular where you have two brushes
Yeah.
moving and they mirror one another and you often have to actually reverse them because like I don't know, it just that one sort of bent my brain in a way that was a bit
Yeah.
a bit tough. But yeah, it makes me happy that they offer you the option if you want.
Hmm.
to not have to go through every single one of these moments.
Yep. Um, yeah, there are places where I do feel like it, um, hashtag gameplay, where
Hmm.
it's like, oh, there are places where it's like, oh, you want to make sure that it like feels like enough of a game, right? It makes me wonder
Yeah.
what Chicory would have been like if it had released in 2025,
Mm-hmm.
when there's more space for sort of the like cozy, um the like more passive games, right? Idle
Right.
games, more like exploratory things that feel like they are still games, but like don't need that gameplay. Uh,
Hmm.
but there are places where Chicory feels and to be clear, I don't necessarily know that I would prefer that game. It just is a question of like what would it be like if the design aesthetics were a little different, right? Because
Yeah.
I think Chicory technically shares family with Tunic,
Yes. Yep.
and they both have places where they're like, oh yeah, and let me show you how much game I am right now.
Hmm.
And oh boy, you could definitely walk into either of those places and get something real different than what you expected.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah,
Especially with
yeah,
Tunic.
especially with Tunic.
Um,
It's such a cute little fox game.
yeah. Nope. Be prepared to
Oh,
get your
get
butt kicked.
pummeled. Yep.
Yeah. Um, what's really neat about this game is as soon as you kind of do the introductory chapter, you do have the opportunity to start exploring the world, and that's when you first get to witness the color palette changes. That's when you first get to witness just other spaces and other villages. I think the second one you go to is Potluck, where
Mhm.
you meet Chicory, or not Chicory,
Clementine.
K Barbecue, yeah,
Mhm.
K Barbecue's parents,
Oh yeah.
and you start stepping into your shoes and taking this seriously. It's like again, just because I was thinking about dance a lot when I was playing this, I'm like, oh, this is when I said, hey, let me like audition for a dance company and like try to perform and like make this a thing, like make this not just a hobby that I do for fun, but like part of my identity at this point. And people will see me and I will say, yes, I am a dancer.
Right.
I am the wielder. And it's really funny. I think one of the most striking conversations you have in this chapter for me is the first time you go to the art academy and you see Clementine and her friend who, after seeing so many people being supportive and excited for you and ready for you to be a wielder, Clementine's friend is not.
Not at
Not
all.
a fan.
Not at all.
Not at
Not,
all.
not even
Your first
pretending.
your first hater. Which you've made it if you've got a hater. Apparently, that's what they say. But no, and it's a moment where you start to realize, okay, this is actually this is a real thing that other people are now going to judge me on.
Yep.
And it can be kind of a tough realization to come to when you've had so much just joy otherwise.
I think especially considering I'm trying to find the friend's name. I can't
Yeah.
remember. It's like Sm- anyway, I don't need to I don't need to
Let
um
me see if it's on a screenshot I have
yeah.
while you.
But like the I think part of what makes that step so significant is that it's like there's a space where I feel like, especially walking into walking into like the academy, right? There's a certain amount of like, yeah, it's this snobby whatever reaction, but there also is this feeling of like a little bit. I can imagine being in that space and feeling like, oh, here's some nepotism at work, right? Like, oh,
Hmm.
you just happen to be in the tower, and so somebody just hands you off the brush when all these people who have this, what they would consider this sort of visible skill that they've practiced and all this stuff,
Right.
fighting for the opportunity to get a shot, and then, oh, you just happen to be here, right? Like, and that conversation, I think resonates for, especially again, I think about a lot of these things from various marginalized frameworks, right? And like how many times do people seem to get passed over because like we have an affinity for fruits. I have an affinity for fruit snacks because I know fruit snacks is heart. I know where they come from. I know that they're just a
Mm-hmm.
janitor, but they're, doing the thing, whatever. But also like at that point in time, like they hadn't even actually been handed the brush. They just took it, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
so there is this feeling of I think a discomfort that to a certain extent feels merited of like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, cool. Glad that you cut your way in line. Just because like you're a fan and you happen to be in the right spot at the right time. Okay. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but to I still don't like I still didn't like that interaction. I still didn't like that. That was incredibly rude and
No.
unmerited. Like,
It-
and also
right.
this is that and it did stick out to me on second play in particular, the way that Clementine does not possess the aggro skill that like there's no way if somebody tried to talk that way to Clementine, like
Yeah.
yeah, like fruit snacks would have painted them into oblivion. Like this
Mm-hmm.
the game would have changed and all of a sudden I'd be hearing the like battle music from Expedition 33. Like that would be
Right.
they're like, "Oh no, no. I'm not the wielder, I am the paintress." So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's just some differences there.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it does take a lot because Clementine does eventually call out, and I'm looking at the screenshots and none of them have this friend's
Yeah,
name,
I don't
which
know
is
why.
so
Yeah,
unfortunate.
I will. Yes,
Um,
tag.
yeah, but it's interesting because Clementine does eventually get to that point, but it takes a lot, like multiple visits to the art academy, multiple times that you're kind of just like really talked down to,
Hmm.
with no sort of follow up on her part except to confront you or console you afterwards.
Right.
And yeah, I agree. I think what's really this interaction with this particular character, who I think is maybe like, I can't tell what sort of animal they are, maybe like a, I don't know,
It's
a wolf,
Radish.
radish. Okay,
Who's apparently I'm looking at
beaver,
there's a as a Wolverine.
Wolverine. Okay,
Yeah.
closer with the wolf.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, radish. I think what I appreciated about Radish is clearly this means so much to her. Like
Hmm.
she has put in the time, put in the effort, wants to be seen. And there's actually an interaction you can have with her where she's like, if you could show my portfolio,
Yeah.
like if it came from you, I know that this could, like, I know I could make it happen, but I am just not getting these opportunities
Hmm.
that you got. And again, so it's like there isn't like a true villain in this story, even when you have these antagonists who are like kind of dampening a little bit of your shine and sort of putting a little bit of a downer on your experience.
Hmm.
It's they're coming at it because there is this system that has been created, that is being perpetuated, that she knows exists,
Yep.
and she is just trying to figure her way to work around it because she knows that she is not going to get the opportunity that you did because she doesn't have the access you did, even if she has, we don't know her skill level, but she made it into the academy.
Hmm.
You just got to have some level of skill, right? So again, another example of one character arc that honestly could have been its own game
Hmm.
that is weaved in so beautifully with this overall theme of creation and identity and like what it means to be in the space, and participate in it.
Yep. Yep.
So good.
It is such a ugh, God. I don't know how you create a game where you have such a range of characters who all hit. Like it just honestly from a
Hmm.
game from a game writing perspective, yeah, you're just like, wow,
Yeah.
incredible.
I mean, I don't know any of these developers individually.
Yeah.
I imagine the amount of self-reflection you need to write some of these moments so accurately.
Yeah.
You have to at least, again, don't know them, but you at least have a recognition of yourself in a way that I very much respect
Hmm.
and admire because a lot of this is so vulnerable. And I feel like a lot of this is comes straight from like, yeah, this is something that I have personally felt, and I'm writing it into this character right here.
Right. Well, and it's interesting again. I didn't realize that I had the art book
Hmm.
until doing some of the prep for this, and I was like, oh, I I never looked at it. But like one of the things that I realized is that, so of course this was again 2021, the era of the Sona, right?
Hmm.
And so I think a number of the characters in the game are people's picnic sonas. Um, so for
Wow.
instance, Lena's picnic sona is marzipan. Um, and so
Okay.
yeah, so it makes me wonder. I'll send you the
Mm.
screenshot in case you want to like put it in the
Yeah.
show notes or whatever. Um, but it makes me wonder like how many of these character sort of side stories are
Hmm.
like particular references to dev team members, different, like there are a couple of stories in particular where I'm like, ooh, this was somebody lived this one.
Yeah. It's too
Gotta get
specific.
those tough colors. Like I was like,
Yeah.
um
By icon
yeah.
macaroon. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Truly.
Um and so yeah, I think there are a lot of places where, and again, like it's what makes this more than a 13-hour game, right? Is that
Yeah.
it is about being able to experience the world that exists alongside the action. And that is, I think that's also such a part of, like, it's what it means for any of us to be a wielder, right? It's what it
Hmm.
means for any of us to be part of our craft, is that like honing in and doing the craft is such an important part of what we do. But it also, I think that it rings hollow if we don't have a reason for doing it, and if we don't understand the impact of doing it, and if we don't see the ways that other people do that thing, and that they are learning and growing, and that we can be learning and growing, and
Hmm.
and having the space to regularly understand the like, this is where I've got some this is where I've got some steam, some energy, some whatever, this is where you've got that thing, and like figuring out how to alternate it. Just, yeah, there's and the game does not force you to do that, right? Like you
Right.
said, there are places where they'll force you to color and slow things down a little bit, but like if you don't want to, there's a really early interaction. I can't remember who it is. Maybe the old man in the who's like, I don't know, why do people just talk to somebody once? Like they specifically clue
Yes.
you in that like you are not going to experience a full conversation if you only talk to somebody once. That you're going to
Hmm.
have to come back and talk to them multiple times to be able to actually get to know them and get depth in that interaction.
Hmm.
And it's a really cool way of handling gameplay pacing, so you don't lock a player into 50 freaking segments of dialogue.
Right.
But it also is a cool, like, hey, you have to consent and participate. You have to like opt into trying to get to know people better, to actually
Yeah.
get to know people better.
Yeah, I thought the game did this so beautifully. So not only, and it's the capybara out of the holy, or what are they called? The
Yeah.
donut holes? I think
Holies.
it's the
Yeah, they call them
holies.
holies. Yeah.
It's like the capybara that's outside of the holies shop
Hmm.
is the one that says this. And so not only do you have these points where, okay, most conversations you do need to initiate a couple of times to get the full conversation with the character. Relatively, I would say relatively early, you get the ability to decorate first just your room, but then quickly you can start decorating other parts of the world, which invites people, if you put down seats and different furniture that they like, to go to those spots. And you can have additional conversations with them there and learn a little bit more about them. On top of that, if you color in a whole space, a whole screen, eventually, if you go back, people might visit, or animals, I guess technically, characters might visit and comment on what you've done, which I don't think there isn't like a relationship bar or anything
Yeah.
like that that you're actually measuring. But to your point, it makes the world feel bigger than you, more alive. Everyone else is a participant in some way in creating this space, and it's not just you as the protagonist walking around with everyone else kind of just existing only when you're there,
Right.
which is beautiful. Is beautifully done. I do think there is this interesting, like, we use the word tension a lot today, but I think there is this like dichotomy sort of between the world and how I loved talking to characters and seeing so many of them had their own creations, passions, things that they're working on. Even other artists, like there's a moment where you can actually get fan art from someone who
Hmm.
like enjoys your work and they're like, I also really love doing art. I know this isn't good, and they give it to you and you can actually opt to take it or not,
Hmm.
which I was like, oh my God, I would never have the heart to refuse this. Like the option I would never pick in the game. But I think what's interesting is this. I'm still trying to grapple with a world, and I know it's also just the conceit of the game, so maybe I'm just overthinking that part, but it's interesting to be in a world where the actual color of the world and everyone's experience of the world is decided by the wielder.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I'm curious if you thought about that, and how sort of this legacy is very singular in terms of like who gets to shape this world.
Hmm.
And maybe this, and this is jumping ahead again, but maybe this ties into part of the ending and the hopes for the future. But I'm curious if you gave thought to just this idea of having a wielder in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is one of what does feel like kind of one of the central tensions, and it feels I feel like this is a I think it'll be hard to relate to the idea of existing in sort of like monoculture, like
Mm,
like very much existed, I think, especially when we were younger, right? That like there would be a show that dominates a thing. It feels like a bunch of people are
mm,
doing a thing at 7 o'clock. Even I was just having a conversation with somebody about Game of Thrones and how when Game of Thrones was like the zeitgeist, and they were talking about, what an experience it was to like sit down and watch this show at this time. And it felt like the neighbors were sitting down and watching the show at the same time, right? Like,
yeah.
um, you know what? Maybe I take that back a little bit. I think that it's one of the uncomfortable tensions of the modern moment is that
Hmm.
like we do exist in a space where like yeah, there are wielders who are shaping, the algorithms that are on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, on the
Hmm.
fucking bird site. Like they are shaping this sense of what the world looks like around us, right? Um and I think there very much is a tension there of like, yo, these are the consequences of these actions, right? Like this is the weight of what it means to be able to wield this brush. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, the vast from what I can understand, the vast majority of the people who end up in these apex positions as these CEOs at
Yep.
AI companies and whatever have done none of the internal work that any of the characters that we would see in a game like Chicory have done to be able to realize the like to process and act on the weight of what they are carrying. And I
Right.
also think that the pure idea of like there's also an element to which you realize it doesn't scale. Like
Yep.
to paint that much of the world also feels weird, right? That it's like, oh,
Hmm.
we're painting the entire world's color has vanished. But like
Yeah.
it makes sense when we're painting our own world's color and that there are other people who have other worlds that exist alongside that. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I think that's a really interesting tension. Do you feel like you resolved some of that? Like,
Um, I don't think I resolved it. I think I think earlier you compared sort of the position of wielder to like idol culture,
Hmm.
even now you just mentioned pop culture, and also the ways that we have multiple platforms, but singular algorithms determining what we consume, how we consume it, what makes it even to be visible.
Right.
And so I think at least the way that the current world is shaped, I feel like we do have this sort of we do have maybe not singular, but very, very few people who control popular culture and
Hmm.
popular perception. And it was interesting because the tension for me partially was, Chicory relatively early on, I think chapter 2 or 3, actually does ask for help. There is a moment that I thought was really cool where Chicory says, you know what? Actually, I cannot do this myself.
Hmm.
I need your help. And as soon as she asked that, I was like, why aren't we asking more people to help? Why couldn't like we just take luncheon and someone else take dinner? And like, why don't we all help? Because there are so many talented creatures here who also love art. We have the academy.
Hmm.
Why aren't we all helping? And so it was one of those things where it's like, I think, talking about, Twitter, the bird app, right?
Yeah.
I think it's one of those moments where maybe everyone has used this app for so long, this platform, and they can't break away from it
Right.
because it's what they know and what they do. And they're afraid of moving to something different because maybe they don't have the reach or visibility. And I wonder if there's like or like a thread connecting like our ties to some of these algorithms and systems that we know they're not ideal, but they somehow work and they are fine for what we're using them for now, and we won't fix it until it's totally broken.
Hmm.
But then when it's totally broken, we have no system other than what we know. Thus, we recreate the system of what we know. It's
Right.
like, okay, the world is no color. Instead of just picking one wielder, we could have just like created a new system right then and there. But instead, we kept the old system going. So,
Well, I mean,
yeah.
but I think that's a lot of the struggle of sort of like
Right.
more like revolutionary thinking, right? Is that like
Mm-hmm.
the the ability to make change. This actually ties into a talk that I'm giving at Game Workers Conference. It's a digital event, but like I think part of being able to make significant systemic change comes with like changing your central metaphor, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
in the games industry, we spend so much time sort of talking about like games in production in terms of like making a resource, right? Like it feels like we are in the factory making the video game, and the video game will go in a box and we sell a thing, right? And so there are ways that we think about ourselves, and there are ways that we think about games as, honestly, I think as a commodity that
Mm-hmm.
we end up prioritizing over thinking about games as an art form, games as an element of human connection, games as a vehicle for storytelling, right? And the thing is that like games being a vehicle for storytelling or an art form or whatever does not mean that they are also not commodities and products, particularly when you sell them on Steam, right? But if our mindset is shaped around, well, these are the ways that our lives are sustained by holding it in this framework of this is the widget that comes off the widget, off of the conveyor belt, the assembly line, the video game assembly line, then of course that's what we end up getting. And when the system
Mm-hmm.
breaks down, if you don't have people whose mindsets are about making that shift, and also I think having a team or a group of people who are like, oh, and by the way, here are the ways that we will help take care of some of these things that you're going to be concerned about if we start shifting the system, then it
Mm-hmm.
makes it much easier to slide back into the original status quo. And so
Right.
like the when the color vanishes, there's still only one paintbrush. right? And like there's an entire economy that exists around the wielder, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the holies sell because there's a FOMO system. This is a limited edition, special
Mm-hmm.
color whatever holy, right? And so like the the economic engines that exist, the special t-shirt that's made by the wielder, the like whatever,
Yeah.
there are a bunch of systems that you have to also be able to address at the same time because those are the human
Yep.
pain points. That's the last part of this monologue is unfortunate. Like, I think this is part of the difficulty in figuring out how to deal with AI is that
Mm-hmm.
AI being integrated into all
Oh
of these
yeah.
different human experiences that we're going through right now, if slash when the bubble were to burst, it's not now just a discussion of like, oh, these tech companies are too big to fail. People's best friends will vanish from existence. The ways that
Mm-hmm.
people learn to do their jobs or be validated in their jobs, poof, gone. Like, you then have to people's therapists will could go, just go like that gone.
Yep.
And so then the question becomes not just what happens when this technology is no longer available, it's all of the human things that people are experiencing alongside this technology will be legitimate pains that they are
Mm-hmm.
experiencing that if we don't have an alternative for, then of course people will want to go back to the thing that is giving them that comfort, that situation, that structure. And like
Yep.
that's the thing that makes it so scary. And so like it's great that by the end of the game we're able to cultivate a culture in which people are manifest I won't not to jump to the end, but like that I think is so much of the struggle is that it's like it's
Mm-hmm.
not just about the technology itself. It's not just about the system. It's trying to find the ways to give humans an opportunity to visualize their interactions in this system. Abolishing the
Mm-hmm.
nope. I said I was not. I said I was done with the rant, but there's certainly an abolish the police
Mm-hmm.
connection there because it's hard to
Yep.
envision what the world looks like when you don't have police, when you're being actively victimized by a bunch of people who police supposedly come in and take care of.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm done.
Yeah. I mean, no notes, that's like perfect on moving forward. Yeah. Well, no, I think, and that's where, again, I think this game surprised me because you do get to the point. You do see, like, again, I don't know. I felt like with my question immediately being like, why aren't we asking for help?
Hmm.
Why aren't other people stepping in? And I also think, like, when it's interesting when these disasters happen, unless you have the frameworks in place, you don't have the ability to rethink. Because if you're constantly reacting, you have no ability to have the imagination or the
Right.
space to like think of something new. Which is why it's like before the color vanishes, that's when you should be asking those questions. But as you said, if the economy, if everything is being driven by the system as it's functioning, where is the space to ask questions then too? It's constructed so you don't.
Hmm.
So yeah, again, I was just like this game. I just
Yeah.
the ways that they interweave all of this really beautifully is so good.
I need Chicory 2 to have a group of people who are really thoroughly invested in maintaining the academy, not because it's their legacy, but it's because it's their profit model.
Oh
That
my god. No.
then we have to have combat. That's the problem. That
Yeah.
one is
Oh my gosh. Then we
uh,
must fight. Yeah. Um, so through this game, you're exploring the world. You are seeking out the different places where the corruption is existing. Eventually, what really is sad to see and like heartbreaking to see is as you witness these corruption points and you as K barbecue as fruit snacks go into them, you basically are exposed to and experience levels of critique that hit not the positive feedback that allows you to grow, constructive criticism. You start to internalize just really negative self-talk and self-doubt, moving into, again, this idea of like this game is addressing depression, severe anxiety, where you feel, phrases like you're a joke, you never were good enough. These kind of words are constantly coming up now in K Barbecue and Fruit Snacks' head. Very hard to play,
Yeah.
to be quite honest. I'm curious. I feel I do not like typically when games are, how to say this? I don't like games often that seek to be like therapy, that open, like are striving to be, I'm going to make a game that talks about mental illness and we're going to like create a nice story that will help you through mental illness. When games are packaged like that, I struggle because I feel like there is such a tightrope you need to walk to be able to portray an experience of depression, anxiety, and then also responsibly allow players to weave in and out of that story to take care of the player, because this is such a heavy topic, I think. And I will have to say I was really impressed with the ways they did it. And I also appreciate that they never claimed to be a game that was like supposed to heal you in any kind of way, throughout this as you're going through all of these different confrontations. I think that was one thing I really appreciated because there are other games I have played that more explicitly are like, we're going to make this game about a very heavy topic and we're going to like provide you with a neat bow at the end. So I wanted to shout out the game for the writing in that respect as well.
Yeah. I think there's a I think that there is a ten nope, I'm gonna find another word too. I'm not gonna keep
I
this
know.
in
I'm
tension.
like, we keep
Um,
using, but it's a game of
it's a
dichotomies
it
though. And it's
really
like, there's a push and a pull that's like really good.
hmm I think they're, part of the struggle in like using this art form, using games as a form to tell personal stories, right?
Hmm.
Is that you want to tell strong personal stories. And I think oftentimes, especially I can think about, late, the mid to late 2010s, um, early 2020s feel like a bit of that like video game saviorism energy, like,
Hmm.
oh, we're just, if you play the right video game, it's a chance to walk in somebody's shoes and understand whatever the thing is, right? Never
Hmm.
mind that unfortunately, many of those game experiences will not be created by people who are experiencing the things that you're trying to create the empathy simulator for because the tools aren't available, right? Not
Hmm.
to the people, the tools and the resources and the knowledge aren't readily available to the
Right.
people who would be telling those stories. And so I think that for Chicory to so heavily dive into these stories and discussions about creativity and depression and that kind of thing, but not market itself as, and this is the depression, this is the creative depression game. Um,
Hmm.
I think a lot of the, oh no, we're a Zelda coloring book game. It gives them space to lean into those things. Um, and I think maybe some of the prioritization of this is it's one of the things that I think is a blessing and a curse of games is that in order for the game to land its messaging, its whatever it is, like it generally needs to be a good game, right? Which is an
Hmm.
evaluative criteria that, of course, is subjective and whatever. But it's like the medium is the message. You are interacting through this series of button presses and like whatever the thing is. And if you can't resonate with that interaction, I think it makes it a lot harder to grasp whatever message is on the other side. It becomes a language barrier essentially.
Hmm.
Chicory provides so many spaces for you to feel comfortable in its language, in its gameplay language, that it gives you an opportunity to really sink into the themes that it's dealing with. And it also deals with those themes in ways that create a bunch of trust. I think that most any time a conversation or a situation shows up, it feels like they have handled that conversation really responsibly. And that's a thing that we should be doing without having to put it on the tin, right? Like it shouldn't have
Right.
to be on the side of the game. By the way, and we're having these whatever conversations because that's just being a good human. And that's
Mm-hmm.
I think what the game does. It's wild seeing other games. There's a game that recently received some LGBT representation award or whatever from a person who kind of regarded it as like real scummy in the response. And I was like, oh, this franchise actually, if I remember correctly, has a history of scummy behavior. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like you should be able to just be a decent human and show that you can have decent human conversations. But I think it's hard in this medium where a bunch of folks, unfortunately, there's a reputation for a bunch of folks still trying to learn how to be decent humans, but having way too much power
Mm-hmm.
before they figure some of that stuff out.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Too true. Um, as as you go through the wielder trials, there eventually are four that you have to complete with Chicory, more as your colleague and peer at this point, and
Hmm.
still a mentor, but moving into again that colleague role. I think what was really interesting for me is how each moment of this trial section allowed you to get to know Chicory just a little bit more. And one of my favorite moments with Chicory is you get to actually just spend time floating in like a pool with
Oh,
her
right.
and relaxing. And I think this speaks to what you were talking about in terms of fruit snacks and K barbecue, how it's not simply the skill that makes someone like a strong wielder in this world. And I wrote down the quote specifically because I
Hmm.
thought it was so great. Chicory says it's not just about creating art, you are creating a better world for everyone. And Chicory speaks to how K barbecue and fruit snacks don't just care about coloring the world, but they care about finding lost kittens, decorating the space, talking to everybody, reaching out and just making sure people are okay. And I appreciated that you can see, again, going back to the generational trauma theme, how while Chicory still in her way has perpetuated some harm into K Barbecue's experience as K Barbecue is learning to be a wielder. You can see Chicory and how she is also trying to do better and like
Hmm.
show K Barbecue how she wished she was taught and how she wished she was appreciated when she was being mentored herself. And so that conversation for me was one of the highlights in, I think, one of the more video gamey sections where it's like go to the four corners of the world
Right.
to each dungeon and collect the thing in each space. I appreciated that interspersed with those dungeon areas, you got these opportunities to see again Chicory more as a peer and less as an idol that you are worshiping. I think there's actually a cafe moment where I chose the cafe
Yeah.
at least, where you go and hang out and Chicory is sitting there. And I think K Barbecue said something like, oh my God, I can't believe we're actually like, we're hanging out, we're chilling. And it's such a sweet moment because eventually Chicory shares, like, I never hung out. I've never had friends or peers that I felt like I could relax with. And so yeah, I'm curious if you had any favorite moments as in the wielder trials and getting to know Chicory.
I did really I really enjoyed the sort of just like relaxing and floating.
Hmm.
Also exploring the different environments of the wielder trials, being able to like walk
Yeah.
around on the beach for some reason felt really
Yeah.
nice. I think that there's something about Yeah, I think there is something in that transition of chicory from mentor, from idol, from whatever to person that becomes really important
Hmm.
because it also I think it's really important for chicory to have a peer, to have like
Yeah.
a friend, right? I think it's really interesting that I don't think it ever occurs to me to ship pizza and chicory. Um,
Same, but weirdly, other characters do.
yeah,
Even your dad
uh-huh.
at the beginning is like, "Are you calling your
You're hanging out
girlfriend
with
or
your
something like that?"
girlfriend, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really I feel like you have to do such an interesting tightrope with your writing to
Yeah.
create these themes of genuine bond and intimacy that are
Yeah.
not romance coded, right?
Yep.
And I think that it's really it also it's impactful for a number of reasons. Like if it were romance coded, it would also really create some messy, gross
Eesh,
things
yeah.
with like power dynamics
Hmm.
um and yeah, we don't need any of that.
We don't
We
need
don't
that.
need any of that. But in comparison, like to be able to have a space where chicory and fruit snacks or KBBQ, K barbecue is
Hmm.
able to they're able to just actually learn from and grow with each other
Hmm.
because they have that shared space. Um, and I think that's one of the things that's so great about the Wielder trials is seeing a little bit of the handoff, right? Spaces where
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, actually I've got this. And Chicory is able to appreciate that. And then also places where Chicory is able to show up with the
Hmm.
talent, the energy, the experience, and they're able to like play off of each other. That the
Yeah.
Wielder trials, I think they very much feel like they are about oh, where was it? What's the thing that I have you read Gideon the Ninth? Have we?
Oh, yes.
Okay, well,
We haven't talked about it, but yes, I have
yeah,
absolutely read Gideon the Knight.
yeah, so I just finished it like a couple of weeks ago or something. Um
Hmm.
and we could do an entire podcast on that.
Oh my gosh,
Um
yes.
but I think without spoilers there, um there is something about having a person who's your person,
Yeah.
um, and the ways that you are able to find some resonance. There's some, I can't, damn it, I can't say anything else because that goes heavily into spoilers territory.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's a way that chicory and fruit snacks are able to like give each other completion in a way that is I think incredibly necessary for what ends up being the end of the
Mm.
game and what creates the opening for a legitimate change in the system. Because
Hmm.
if it was just going to be another handoff, if you know if it was like okay, so you know Chicory's the new Blackberry and you know K barbecue is the new Chicory, like I don't know that there would have been enough of the
Right.
space, the creative, you know, the whatever it is that would actually like, hey, let's shift this system. There's a thing that they're able to make together through those wielder trials that's really important.
Yeah, and I think part of that, I think we talk a lot about just in work, in industry, in spaces with your peers, we talk a lot about trauma bonding,
Yeah.
um, where uh, I laugh because otherwise
Yep.
I'd cry.
Yep. That's
But no, it's like
it's the industry.
it's
Yeah.
it's one of those things where I think when I was first thinking about how chicory and K barbecue and fruit snacks how they relate, it I think it's really important that Chicory can ask for help. I think it's really important that Chicory feels comfortable enough to share some of her vulnerabilities and where she and Blackberry butted heads, struggled, what were her challenges. But I think what I appreciated most about the Wielder trials is that you can't just build these peer-to-peer relationships off of trauma bonding. You have to be able to spend time enjoying one another
Hmm.
and sharing in like happier times, relaxed times. And I think what I appreciated is amidst, going into these corruptions, dealing with some really heavy things, you see that they're not just trauma bonding. They are also they are sharing their sort of weaknesses with one another, their struggles, but they're also making space for joy and for relaxation. And I thought that was again another just point to the well done tab of Chicory.
Hmm. Yeah, it's no, 100% agree. No notes.
One of the realizations near the end of the game in this sort of final section in the chapter is the way that the brush ends up being not just the tool that you're using, but it kind of holds in a lot of that energy. It's the brush that is holding the energy of this corruption within it. I was just I found that to be really, really a really interesting and honestly great choice in terms of like where is this source of anxiety, depression, corruption coming from? And I'm curious about your feelings when that realization of it's this brush that is kind of the symbol, more so than like the eye or the scary trees that
Hmm.
you're seeing like lurking around everywhere.
Yeah, I guess I felt some resonance in that, and I guess I would be curious. I felt resonance in that because I feel like it is an inherent part of the creation is the self-doubt, the like you're taking a part of yourself and putting it outside of yourself, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if anybody got to hear all of the things that I say about myself in my head, it would be not wouldn't be good. And I
Yeah.
say that as a statement that I feel like most people probably have an inner dialogue, an inner experience with themselves that is so complicated and nuanced and carries a bunch of pain and knowledge and looping thoughts and all this different stuff. And like when you make your craft, especially in something that is, one of these creative fields, you're putting a little bit of that out on the page, right? Like how many
Mm.
writers have like written a thing and somebody's like, mm, you sure you wanted to put that on paper? Right? Like, and so I think yeah, I think there is something about inherently the brush carrying this, 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 this darkness, this, whatever that feels, I don't know. It felt a bit resonant to me.
Mm-hmm.
How about you?
Same. I think you talk about like the medium is the message. In the same way, your tools are also like the tools you use to create are such an integral part of you creating. I
Hmm.
think about like my partner Sam when he was learning to play guitar. We bought honestly like the cheapest. We didn't know if it would stick right, and so we got
Yeah.
like a cheap guitar. And it got to a point where his skill set was above what the guitar was able to do.
Hmm.
And just because it was not great wood, the strings were cheap. It
Hmm.
was just I think about the way that our tools impact to a degree what we can create and how we can create. And then to think about also, again, the legacy manifest within this brush that's been passed down generation of wielder, where it's like, I don't know, I think about you inherit something and you can kind of like people talk about juju, right? It's like, oh, does it have this energy? Does it have the vibe? Does it have the juju of like the people before it? And that can be like a beautiful
Hmm.
thing. But if whatever you inherit has like within it the trauma and the weight and you don't let it go and you don't maybe create something new to help you move forward, again, thousand times resist. Not
Hmm.
everything can fit in a backpack.
Yeah.
What are you going to keep?
Oh.
Like, what are you keeping there? What are you leaving?
Hmm.
And if you're carrying with you a backpack or a brush filled with all of this weight, there's no way that you can like you're carrying it with you. You're never moving past it. So I thought that was a really beautiful like metaphor that they created. And Chicory at the end, like I think the line is like, just try drawing one more time and using that ability to create a new brush. Yeah, that hit for me.
Yeah.
But I also thought, like, it made me think about how oftentimes we say the phrase, like, oh, if you can't find a seat at the table, like, make your own table.
Sure.
And inherent in that, I feel like you have to understand how to make tables
Yeah.
if you're going to do that. And so, like, K Barbecue was only able to create a brush because of like the experience, the mentorship, and maybe even having held to the previous brush
Hmm.
was able to figure out what was needed in this new one to create it. So I think what I appreciated about the brush metaphor, long story short, is how it doesn't discard like the history and the context from which this new brush is created. And I thought that was also really resonant for me.
Yeah. I mean, I really like that there is a it's it it's the blessing and the curse of experience, right? Is that it
Mm-hmm.
like K Barbecue makes a new brush and doesn't make a splat roller, right?
Right.
Like the the things that we learn, the experiences that we have are going to shape a bit of like the places where we do decide to like deviate to strike out on our own, whatever the thing is, probably will still be heavily informed by the stuff that we do.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means that we oftentimes can carry a lot of, this is, I think, a lot of discussion that we have, like, as folks in diaspora, especially folks in diaspora living here in Imperial Core, right? Like, there
Mm-hmm.
are a lot of, oh, that was the, like, so many words for
Mm-hmm.
many folks who, like, come from marginalized backgrounds but are living in places that have global privilege, right? Like
Right.
there are a lot of things that we may strike out to try and like make significant social change, and it is really significant to us and also is still probably going to carry a significant amount of the is going to perpetuate problems from
Mm-hmm.
what we were raised up in, because it is very hard for us to act way outside of our own understanding.
Right.
And yet, like, it's still really important to make those strides, to make those changes. I think so much about like what things must have been like for like I can't imagine what my great grandmother or my great grandfather, like the world that they would live in for them to imagine. I mean, the technology alone, right? But like throw
Right.
all that away. The idea that like a black man could have his own space and technology to be able to say whatever the hell that he wants about any number of people, and white people in that any number of people, right? Like what a wild what a
Mm-hmm.
wild understanding. What a to be able to look at a world like that. But then I also think about a number of, as I learn about more of my family's history in particular, and I see some of the decisions that my parents made, my grandparents made, that their parents made to try and find ways to like provide opportunities for their kids or to get along or whatever the things are. And I see ways that they make decisions that I'd love to say I would have never done if I were in their position, right?
Right.
And they end up perpetuating these
Mm.
problems or these harms that we then figure out have to deal with the iterations of today. And so the
Yeah.
idea, I think that comes back to you talking about the darkness being inherent in the brush, right? That like there are these places where we carry the legacy and some of the darkness and things that we have to be willing to continue to battle and confront and change. Um, yeah, I really like that idea of like, yeah, that probably a big part of why K Barbecue makes the paintbrush is because they had some paintbrush experience, and that's a good
Mm-hmm.
thing. And it also comes with some weight too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, this goes into sort of like the start of what is next, because the game does end, with this open opportunity. And I think this open door for Chicory and K Barbecue or Fruit Snacks to make changes to this world. And I think in the game itself, the final lines are like I think they say something about how like let's just appreciate this moment, and
Yeah.
tomorrow, tomorrow we will start rebuilding. So yay, because also if you have done something, take the time, appreciate it, celebrate it, give it its moment.
Right.
So I'm glad they didn't immediately hop in. But I'm curious, as credits are rolling, did you have any hopes for the future for Chicory and fruit snacks? Like what hopes did you have for as they start to rebuild? Where the choices, like what choices would they make?
Yeah. Um, gosh. Um, I don't know. I think a lot of my thoughts were probably a little selfishly minded. The idea of like I I want I want fruit snacks to be a stronger like wielder, right? Like and like I want to see all of the paintings that fruit snacks will get to be able to do in the ways that they get to like stretch and make more creativity and grow.
Right.
And I think that's because to me like so much of like I sometimes hate doing this with you because
Oh my God. No, continue. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Keep going. Keep
yeah,
going.
clip it. That's it. I sometimes hate doing this with you because we get done with it and I'm just like, I just want to be doing this. Like, I just like,
Yeah.
what are the ways that like, I know the ways that my power level would just, if we were doing this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's a part of me that like wants that. Like, what does fruit snacks future look like? But I also respect that like there's a lot of space in there for just friendship and rest, and like that's also what I want for Chicory is space to have
Mm,
friendship and rest and to not define herself by
mm-hmm.
her ability to do this thing. And so yeah, I don't know. Is a little complicated. And I do love the idea of like them being able to guide a new generation of wielders and help them understand their own paintbrushes and like be able
Yeah.
to address some of those to be able to provide mentorship in ways that perhaps does not hit on some of the problems of the past.
Mm. I love that point about giving more time for that friendship and rest. Because here I see in me, I'm like, okay, but tomorrow we're going to start rebuilding the
See,
world by
Same.
see, and I'm like, nope, nope, you're right. Friendship and rest. That honestly, yep. Um, God, that's good. Yeah, I don't know. It's funny because one of the things I thought a lot about is okay, so the wielder is like being at a job when you are the only person who knows how to do the thing at the job,
Mm-hmm.
and you can never take a sick day because if you took a sick day, nothing would get done because you were the only person in the job with that role. And I remember at the end, I was so thankful that um, Chicory and K Barbecue could share that burden. And I just really hoped I was like, okay, now you've got a duo, train up, like get more people in on this. Like I think any system or process that is hinges its success or failure on one person or one
Yes.
entity, like I think you said it earlier, not scalable. It's not feasible, it's not
Nope.
scalable. You cannot continue in that way in an extended fashion. And so it made me think about, honestly, one of my weaknesses in the creative process, which is I do try to do everything on my own. And I could do better about asking for help, or if I'm feeling stuck, asking for, like, how many times have I told you I have a really good idea and I have this thing and I want to make it
Mm-hmm.
happen, but I can't. And you're
Mm-hmm.
always like, yeah, just give me like what you've got so far and we can like workshop it.
Mm-hmm.
And then in my head, I'm like, yeah, that's the right thing to do. But
Mm-hmm.
I need to like polish up my notes so they're good enough so that you can help, which is the wrong, that's not the thing that you should be thinking. And it's, I create a system for myself where I am like the only person in the pipeline,
Uh-huh.
partially because I mean, I do enjoy like the parts of the process
Mm-hmm.
and it's fun, but I think also I use it as an excuse to potentially sometimes stop myself in the creative process
Ooh.
because then if I don't make it, then maybe it won't get posted and then maybe it won't get judged and perceived because I'm feeling very vulnerable about this thing I'm excited about. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that a little
Mm.
bit.
That's
So, this by the end of the game, again, thinking about the creative process less as a single person creating a thing from start to finish by themselves and having it be a work of art, and making creative processes be more of a communal activity is some I, I'm still learning the lesson. It needs to be applied, but it's
yep.
something I thought a lot about.
I I feel very similarly. The
Hmm.
it it feels, I don't know if you how much or if you relate to this, but like I I like I love collectives. Some of the work that I'm the most proud of has been like
Hmm.
stuff where things that have published on the IntelliGame website that were somebody else's work that's just like, oh, we got to publish it, it's cool, whatever. But there still is this like point of pride of like,
Mm,
this is the thing that I did, right? This is the thing that I wrote, this is the thing that
yeah.
I published. And like, it is hard for me, I think, sometimes to let go a little bit of like, if it's our thing, like that's cool. But like I feel like I should be able to do this myself. Like I shouldn't have to
Mm,
rely on somebody else to do the thing. Um
hmm.
and like, am I not maybe kind of similar where you're like, well, I need to have like my notes polished enough or whatever. I'm like, well, I have to make
Right.
sure my power level's high enough to be able to like match what you're doing, right? Like I don't want to
Mm.
come in and get carried. Um and so
That's so funny because again, mirror thoughts mirrored
I I
completely. Um, yeah. Well, and what stinks is that I think also, particularly nowadays, and particularly in the West, um, it's because we so much glorify the singular
yes.
person who does the thing. We don't celebrate the collectives. Like auteur culture is alive and well.
Hmm.
And I think what I struggle with personally, because I feel the same. I really enjoy the work I've done as a part of a group, some of the best work out there, honestly. And you wouldn't put my name immediately next to it. And I am so proud of that. But what gets recognition and what gets opportunities are when your name singularly is in someone else's
Hmm.
purview and visibility. And so I struggle with that personally, where I'm like, I love collaborating with others, but I also really want to like make sure to hold my own, to have the recognition that makes it seem like I can hold my own so I can future work with collectives. It's like
Hmm.
chicken and egg at the end of the day, it sort of feels like, but yeah, I don't know if that
Yeah. I
resonates.
mean, I does it also like imagine I imagine that like being a woman in games, like there's there's also like how many times that somebody will, step on the shoulders of your work to be able to take
Mhm.
recognition. And like you I like, are there spaces where you're like also like you got to kind of be protective of some of that because like
Mm,
you you want to be able to take on those opportunities and get the recognition that you're looking for. Um and sometimes you do kind of have to get a little protective of like your identity and making sure that your name and your
mm,
work and visibility are out there. Um, and I feel that like I've been on a number of teams where I'm like the only person of color or the only black person and like can
mm.
feel the ways that even working with a team that's like relatively progressive and like cares about whatever, that I'm like, I keep getting shouldered out here, right?
Mm,
And so it's tough because then my instinct that wants to hop in and say like, yo, I have to make sure that I carve out my space. It makes me really tired. It makes me like more defensive when I'm around the people that I should be able to collaborate comfortably with.
right.
Um, it's a hard balance to strike. I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot there that you're kind of hitting on, and like wanting there is that sense of like scarcity. If
Yeah.
my name isn't there and somebody doesn't think of me when they send the email, then I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna be able to get the opportunity that then keeps me doing the thing. And I also think that like getting paid, right? Like it's just is very different when
What?
you like get if you get paid in this industry and then you cut it
Yeah.
in half, it feels a lot scarier and a lot less sustainable. It's one thing like,
Mm-hmm.
I can take a $500 contract or something and that can like do a thing. But if I only get 250 off of that and then before
Yeah.
taxes or whatever, like that feels scarier
Yeah.
and less sustainable. Even if actually, as I say that out loud, if I was working with somebody who I was doing good work with and could do multiple things because we had more resources, that
Mm,
would actually probably be
mm-hmm.
more sustainable.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. But again, it's so hard when, like we talked earlier about the ways that if you're in the system and it's what you're familiar with, it's what pushes you towards these
Mhm.
conclusions. It can be really hard, even if you are trying to think of like how to change, how to make something even 1% different to like create the stepping stones. It's hard. And you do, like, I feel like I do my best, but I have to fight those instincts
Mhm.
constant. It's a constant reminder of like I think a lot to myself like that phrase of the rising tide raises all ships,
Yeah.
and that is true. I've seen it time and time again. Like that is what works in this industry, despite how it may feel.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's hard. And so yeah, it's like it's funny because I do look at the game and I'm like, why don't they teach everyone how to paint? Why don't they all make
Let's
paintbrushes?
just abolish money. We don't need.
Let's just abolish money.
Did you
Let's just abolish prisons.
did you
What?
not
Well,
did you
get
have the did you have the conversation in I think it's dinners?
it's dinner. Yeah. Which again, we're talking about capitalism, abolishing money, socialism. Like all of this is here in
Mhm.
the game.
In
Just
one game.
and it doesn't feel like you can tell that it's educating you, but it does not feel preachy, which is also really nice. But yeah, I don't know. I am I am looking forward to replaying this game. I did my best. It's funny because I set myself the challenge of drawing more this month, like doodling. I tried to keep it in. I was like, I'm gonna doodle more
Hmm.
because this is Chicory month and it's gonna be fun. I did it for 3 days and then life got in the way. But I did. I have been coloring and I have been journaling.
Oh wow.
So I have been doing like creative outlet things throughout this month in the spirit of Chicory. And I hope to continue because I feel like this game did offer an opportunity to like reflect on my own creative process and what I hope to put in the world besides just the art.
Hmm.
Yeah, I could put art because like I don't know, social media content is
Don't,
whatever. But
nope, I'm not here. I'm not here for you talking down the stuff that you're doing.
I'm
Not here
just,
for it. No.
or geeks and grounds. Like I would say that is a craft that this whole thing is something I hope to I am putting out in the world with the help of folks like you and the people in the community
And viewers
and
like you. Yeah.
and viewers like you. But it got me thinking about like the ways that I struggle to ask for help. I struggle to like allow people the opportunity to like come in and support and,
Patreon.com/geeks and
no,
grounds.
not even monetarily, but just
Yeah.
like, I think, I don't know. And again, by the end of this game, when you as Chicory have lost, or as K Barbecue have lost your powers, you don't have the brush anymore, and you are there, and Lemon the lizard is like, but I'm here to just like swim you across. That for me, I was like, I need to invite more people. I need to give more people the space to help if they want.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think is my biggest takeaway from this game. One of my biggest takeaways.
I think that's a fantastic takeaway. I love that this game offers so much and such a wide range of spaces for
Yeah.
resonance. Sorry, I think there is something to that. I think for me, a lot of it is the time. I think I struggle with like wanting to do all of the things and realizing that like some of what gives you the space to do the things you do well and to get to that level is like dialing in a bit, right? Like if you're gonna be the wielder and you're gonna get to be a good wielder, that means that you're not gonna be a good barista, you know, like you're not, and that's okay, right? Because other people get to be good baristas, and you get to, you know, you're not gonna make the best holies. Your dad might really want you to
I
run the
know.
holies shop, and you're just gonna have to let some people down. And yeah, I think that there's a lot to me that really sticks out about even just the idea of the game itself is structured in a way that like this is going to be a different game for you if you put 40 hours in. You can put 13 hours in and get the story and get the whatever, but this will be a different game for you if you put 40 hours in. This will be a different game if you take the time to color. This will be a different game if you,
Oh my
you know,
God.
if
Taking the time. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just like, right now I feel like there's a lot of reticence, sort of like, there's a reticence to try. I feel like, so I'm, from what I'm listening to you, I'm like, man, just like being willing to try, but also in the age of AI, when time is something that a lot of folks are showing that they don't want to put in
right.
to make something happen. Just highlight again what you're saying. I'm just, it's
No, yeah,
the
please.
ability to be willing to take time. Okay, sorry, continue.
No,
I'm just,
no,
that hit.
that's exactly right because yeah, like the time itself is a gift, you know, we think so much about the work that we make as a product. And I was thinking about like the key of like it's so easy for us to change our focus around a thing that like creates more money, creates more whatever. Like any of the capitalist frameworks that like make us function like the cogs in the machine that the uppers think we are, right? That like looking at the view, trying to do things that like increase our view count and our dollars and our sponsorships or whatever, but like the things that like our time and our attention, those to me feel like our most human, they're like our most human assets, our most human experiences. Unfortunately, we don't get, there's no way we can't max to get more time. We can't max to get more attention. That like what we give is all we've got. We've only got 24 hours in a day. And then AI is about like, oh yeah, no, and now it only takes you a fraction of the time. And we know that when these things happen, we don't then say, cool, and now I can give my time to my friends. We end up, the society shapes around us giving even more time to the machine. We just do it more efficiently. We maximize our productivity. And so like what does it mean for us to say like, yeah, I do have 24 hours. That's It's actually very human of me. And you know who deserves 12 of those hours? Me. My people, my friends, my craft. I'm sitting down and coloring this thing in, not, like, cool if I get the 100% completion thing, but I'm coloring this in because like this is me investing in my community. And because I'm better for investing in that community. The community's better for me being invested in it. Damn it, Jenny. Why are you so good at this?
What do
You're
you mean?
right.
I'm sitting
No,
here nodding.
like,
That's my role in this. I'm just like, yep,
you're
I'm just agreeing with everything you're
oh,
saying.
you're the one who came in and was like, no, and the AI and time and like there's such a push to optimize everything for time and like our humanity is so much our time.
I can think of no other way to close this episode out because that was so beautiful and perfect. So I think we should honestly just leave it at that. Um, Thank you so much for this discussion around Chicory. This game is truly special to me, uh, partially because of your ties to it. Again, like just knowing you enjoyed it so much made it a game I was really looking forward to playing and also really looking forward to talking with you specifically about. So I really, really appreciate you like taking the time to replay it and to like hang out and chat with me about it today. It means a lot and I love you.
No, I honestly like to be able to. I'm trying not to get choked up a little bit. The number of games that you have been able to point me towards. I still remember sitting on the plane playing Sayonara Wild Hearts and just fucking bawling, and that was your fault. And like, I watched Nanette based on your recommendation, also on a plane, also cried, also your fault. Um, the number of experiences that I have had because you shared a level of humanity and passion with me that I am so glad that I trusted. To be able to like give a little bit of that back to you is a real, yeah, it's a real honor. And I am so glad that you spent time with this game because it is not only an incredibly important game, but it also encouraged me to go back and spend time with it and remember just how fantastic it is. So like, yeah, Geeks and Grounds is still it is one of the best things that we have as gamers. Period. And I am glad that you made some space
Clip
for me to be
that.
part of it.
Second clip of the show. The first one is I hate
I
doing
hate
this
doing this with you.
hate doing this with you. Oh man, iconic. Oh my gosh. Yeah, thank you so much. Because I know everyone's gonna be like, where can we find Josh? Because he's a genius.
Okay.
Intelligame is perfect.
Okay.
No notes.
What?
If they want more Josh, where can folks find you?
Yeah, twitch.tv/Intelligame. That's primarily where you see the stuff. Ideally, I won't still be playing Final Fantasy X trying to struggle my way through the boss
84
for
years
the
later.
seventh time. But yeah, twitch.tv/Intelligame. I'm on Blue Sky, handles Wallstormer, WALLSTORMER. I also am the narrative director for Lancer Tactics. It's a turn-based tactics game based in the universe of the tabletop role-playing game Lancer. You can find out more about that at lancertactics.com and wishlist it on Steam. And I am also the narrative director for. I said that already. I am also the head of curation for Game Devs of Color Expo, which is a expo that focuses on highlighting the works of people of color in games from around the world. We are still accepting applications for games until early June, so you can go to gdocexpo.com for more info there.
Yeah, definitely submit if you are a developer. And if you're not, check it out. It is one of my favorite events. Again, I discover at least like 3 or 4 games every year that I'm like, this is going to be the next big thing, and it usually is. The curation is impeccable
Oh,
for
you're
GDOC.
so kind. We honestly we
It's
spend
the
we
truth.
spend a lot of time trying to get on wholesome games levels. So I that sounds like mirroring, but
Spider-Man meme.
it's just
Just
true facts. Like y'all set the bar for what for what happens in indie curation. So
gosh. For I'm just gonna keep going and do not acknowledge that. For the month of May, if you are interested in continuing with Geeks and Grounds and playing our next title, we are going to be playing Unbeatable, a game where music is illegal and we do crimes. You can find out more details at geeksandgrounds.com. I will be uploading the playthrough guide probably again because this week has been a bit wonky. If there might be a day or two delay. Just it's okay. You know what? Take time,
yep,
rest, friendship,
rest in friendship.
and you can go to geeksandgrounds.com for all of the details. Again, within the next week, we officially kick off with Unbeatable May 1st, and we'll be playing it for, again, oh my God. For a second, I was like, is it May? It is going to be May. Where is
It's
this year
gonna be
going?
May.
It's going to be May. Let's go. We will see you next time, and remember, take time, do a little art for yourself, and I hope you have fun with it. Bye.
Have a good one.